Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast. This is episode 134. On camera, I have Nate Hale.
Hi.
Wow. Nate Hale.
Oh.
All right. Anyways,
Thanks,
and in the middle of your screen, for those watching on the video, we have Joshua Bentley back in the garage. Altadis USA. Josh.
That's right.
Can I call you Josh?
Josh, please do. Hello.
Josh, welcome back.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate you having me. Always glad to be here.
Josh brought some goodies, which we always appreciate. All sorts of goodies, actually, and we'll get into that a little bit here.
Yeah.
Brand new cigar that we're going to be lighting up here. I've smoked it, but not all in one sitting. I smoked it while trying to work and relit the cigar 18 times, so I'm excited to actually smoke it and talk about it a little bit tonight.
Tally?
It was like about 18. I said like 18.
It's tough it's tough nowadays trying to smoke something new.
It is.
When you have to put a mask on every time someone walks in the door.
It is. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I want to start off by thanking our sponsors, one of which is Altadis USA. Josh Bentley has been a big backer of the show through Altadis, and we appreciate that. He brought some goodies here tonight. Like I said, the cigar. We've got lighters for the garage, cutters for the garage, all branded with this brand new cigar. So thank you very much. They also make, as you see behind him, you've got Monte Cristo USA, or Monte Cristo, Romeo Julieta, H. Upman, Butera. That's usually where I stop. Oh, no. What else?
Trinidad.
Henry Clay.
Butera?
Yep. Butera. Did you mention that, Butera?
I did mention Butera, yeah.
I got one with me.
Butera, Onyx.
Yeah.
How about that?
Oddly enough, Onyx.
So
they did, Josh brought with him the brand new. Is this on shelves yet?
This has just started shipping.
Started shipping. This is the Onyx Bold Nicaragua. That is the featured cigar tonight, and we'll get into this shortly. But so thank you all to this USA. Thank you to Josh Bentley. Also want to thank Tinder Box at Easton in Columbus, Ohio. They have one of your cigars in the weekly pack this week. They have a special $39.99, and it features the Trinidad Espiritu.
It does, yeah.
So that's one of the cigars you're going to get. So contact Tinder Box at Easton in Columbus, Ohio, or if you're in the area, stop by. Grab that special. It's good through now until next Wednesday, but it is a 5-pack for $39.95. I want to thank Tinderbox for that. BS Cigar Company, I got a gold over here. I know there's probably some golds and silvers around the garage, but thank you, BS Cigar Company. Get a hold of them, bscigarcompany@gmail.com, or you can also talk to us. We'll get you guys hooked up with them as well if you want to order any of the golds or silvers, and we can ship those out. Or again, if you're in the Columbus area, Tinderbox at Easton does feature those as well. And last but certainly not least, patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast. This is, I want to say shockingly, it's starting to grow.
Great.
But no, we really appreciate everyone. We had a new Patreon patron tonight, Tyler Jones, who got a t-shirt. He did the $25 tier, which is amazing. So if you do the $25 tier, you're going to get a t-shirt the first month. I can ship it out to you if you're not local. That's not a problem. We just need your shirt size when you pledge the $25, and also an address. Got $10 tier. After 3 months, you'll get a t-shirt, and then the $5 tier after the 6 months, you'll get a t-shirt. And you can do any allotment you want, I guess. It's just those are the tiers, and then you can do at least that. But if you want to do more than any of those, you want to do somewhere in the middle, you can plug that in on patreon.com/BourbonBS podcast.
This is a great shirt.
Josh let's sell that shirt.
Look at that, man.
Josh got a shirt for being a sponsor tonight. On the front, it says, "Pour one more, light up another. We'll figure this out together."
Boom.
Great shirt.
Yep.
And appreciate all the patrons out there.
Support them
any way you can. That helps us out do this and have some more fun with this. So without further ado, am I missing anything?
I think you nailed it.
Anyone?
I think you nailed it.
We've got an audience here tonight, and I'm looking forward to having them participate. We got a mic out there in the audience participating in the second part tonight, and that is going to be I forget how I said this. What did I say? Someone should really tell me what I say most of the times, because
do we need to get the whiteboard back out?
Who cares about your opinion? Okay. Not you, Nate. That's actually the subject.
Oh.
So who cares about your opinion? And we're going to be drinking tonight the WhistlePig Piggyback 6-year rye, which I'm very much looking forward to. And we're going to see as much of a struggle as it was for Josh and I when we were talking about doing the Onyx Bold Nicaragua, we're like, what will go with it? And I don't know if we hit it on the head or not, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah. We
So
like
Josh,
ryes. We like ryes.
we
too.
like ryes.
Yeah.
Especially in the summertime when everyone's sweating from the humidity. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I was surprised to see Josh bring that bottle because I was like, wait a minute, it's not below 50 yet.
Yeah.
No. It's a good drinking one, but it pairs well
Bobby
with this.
Bobby Hirschman says, "Where's my shirt, Bobby? It's coming, man. I promise you. I just need what size you are. Give me your address again. Just shoot me a text, and I appreciate your support as always." So, Josh,
Yes,
you're on the road.
On the road again.
Back on the road. You've been doing it for how long?
Things. Altogether, or
no, just since the shutdown.
Since the shutdown.
All right, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh my gosh. Golly, for you guys that don't know me, I'm Josh Bentley, Altadis USA, a representative of Monte Cristo, Romeo and Julieta, H. Upman, Onyx, smoking the new Onyx Bold tonight, as Steve said. But I've been in the industry for, oh gosh, I forget how long now. I think this is going on
8 years?
Close to 8 years. Yeah.
8.
Yeah.
About the same time I got
do
into the industry.
Yep. Yeah.
From a different angle, but yeah, it was about the same time.
It was. And so no, Altadis has been great. I am a little bit over 2 years with Altadis, and ever since the shutdown, we started traveling. It seems like the end of June, I want to say.
Okay.
And it's it's kind of been on and off. There's been some a couple of weird instances that I just didn't make me want to get back out on the road.
Give us one.
I'm still not allowed in the state of New York per
Is
their
that because
governor.
I thought it was like a personal.
No.
There was this one time in
This
New
one
York.
time,
He's gotta stay
He was in
500
college.
feet
I mean,
away.
what do you want, man?
Oh gosh, they still don't let me in there. No, the governor, Ohioans cannot visit without having to quarantine for 14 days.
And yet the governor is really wanting people to get back into New York City. So it's kind of ironic. It's kind of ironic.
So soon enough, but no, we're back out on the road. I'm glad to be here tonight and get to enjoy this, but nonetheless, right on the heels of the launch of the Onyx Bold, which we'll be talking about tonight. So
it's fantastic.
Yeah,
it's fantastic. Nate, you been good?
Yeah, busy. Things have just been very, very busy.
Yeah.
Start of the month, so Josh, you probably know this, being in sales. Beginning of the month, end of the month, that's when salespeople tend to push the hardest.
Oh yeah,
because they're trying to get off to a good start for the month, or at the end of the month, they're trying to wrap up, make sure they.
Josh goes hard all the time. He doesn't look at the calendar.
I really don't.
Every day.
I really don't, man.
He just wakes up and goes, where am I driving to now?
It's a marathon, not a sprint, man. I just keep it on cruise control, baby. That's how it goes.
Cruise at 100, man.
Amen.
That's good. That's good. I'm good. Thanks for asking, everyone.
Steve, how are you?
I don't care.
How are you?
Let's get into the cigar. I love it. The manners. All right, so we're going to get into the cigar. We've got Josh on here, and we're talking about the Onyx Bold Nicaragua. Onyx has been around as a brand name since when, Josh?
You put me on the spot.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to this. It's a long time.
So I'm going to tell you. Yeah, I was going to let you do the honors. You do the honors, and I'll tell you a little bit about Onyx.
I don't like going into the podcast too long with an empty glass.
So Onyx Reserve came out, I would say, let's shoot from the hip here and say in the 2000s. I should know this, and Nate is fact checking me here, and but why I say that is because when I was old enough to smoke cigars, I was at the golf course, and one of my first premium cigars, right, non-flavored, that I had was an Onyx Reserve. And so I remember it. I still have the cigar band to that original, really dark Connecticut broadleaf.
Very dark.
Very, very dark. However, it smokes mild. If you're an everyday smoker, it's going to smoke really, really mild. And if you are a novice, it's going to smoke, I would say, mild plus at best.
Yeah.
For that. And I mean, it's still, here we are, 2020. and it's still as popular as ever. It went through an uplift that I do know about in 2018. It got a little bit more of a contemporary box. Nothing happened to the blend. This is all to the box and to the ring and to the footband. Now it has a gold foil, and again, we're talking about the Onyx Reserve, the original Dominican origin. And so this year we launched what we're smoking today, which is the Onyx Bold Nicaragua. So it's out of Nicaragua. It's rolled at AJ Fernandez factory. It has a San Andreas wrapper.
Yep.
It has a Nicaraguan binder and a Nicaraguan and Dominican filler.
So why not just call it the Bold?
Why add Nicaragua to it?
So just
especially
like,
since the wrapper.
I'm not critiquing the name. I think that like Altadis has been working with. You didn't say who it was blended by, did you?
Yeah, it was blended by Rafael Nadal and AJ Fernandez.
Right, and AJ Fernandez is manufacturing this in Nicaragua. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So I think that probably is the answer, because I know Rafael and Altadis is working with AJ on several of your lines.
Mm-hmm.
You got the Monte Cristo Nicaragua. You got the Romeo San Andres. You've got what else?
The Upman by AJ?
Upman.
The
Nicaragua.
by AJ.
And that's Nicaragua as well.
Yep. Did you mention the new Reserve Real Nicaragua?
Reserve Real Nicaragua. So I think there's I think if it says Nicaragua on there, it's kind of coming from AJ right now.
No, not necessarily true. We do have another strategic partner in Nestor Plasencia.
That's right.
Who makes the Espada, right?
And
yeah, the Connecticut Nicaragua, the 1875 Nicaragua, Romeo and Julieta.
Okay.
The Espada Oscuro. And so we do work with Nestor Plasencia too, but to differentiate, because even I think if you just put Onyx Bold, I don't think that sets it apart enough
from because it does kind of look like with the dark, almost Oscuro shade wrapper.
Yes,
which Oscuro is typically darker than Maduro.
Correct.
And for those that don't know that, I would think you're probably right. Onyx Bold, they'd be like, okay, this is just an amped up version of the Onyx Reserve. That's what I would think, without looking into it. So I guess I think
especially if you
answer
just
my
put
question
bold.
A little bit. Yeah, that's what I mean. If it just says Onyx Bold.
And so you want to differotentiate. Nicaragua is hot right now, right?
Yeah, yes, it is.
Nicaragua
been hot for a few years.
is definitely a hotbed for cigars. The tobacco that is coming out of there, and the tobacco that AJ Fernandez has access to
he
as
has
well.
a shit ton, from what I hear.
A vault is a vault. Literally, you go into the vault. Rafael Nadal
vault.
says, and it's quite amazing. So yes, a product from coming out of AJ Fernandez factory in the Onyx Bold Nicaragua.
It's good. Bold anymore with cigars, it's tough. I feel like you don't know what to expect. I don't know if I'm expecting a like just pepper bomb or just like throat punch or whatever. And this doesn't have it. I think this is it does have a lot of bold flavor. I think the name is fitting.
In the first quarter inch, right?
Yeah, I just lit it up. I just lit it up.
Just lit it up. But you're exactly right. And that's, I guess, that's good. Yeah, that's a great descriptor. It is very well balanced. But that should be a preface, is that, hey, even though it's bold, it's not, punch you. I like how you said that, punch you in the throat, kind of a spice to it.
Yeah, no one likes a good throat punch.
You get a little of that
the
tingle.
Receiving end or delivery.
But it's more of a white pepper.
Yeah. I mean, I think balance. It almost is. I think for most people to light this up, I feel like you guys are gonna not expect it to be as balanced right out of the gate. Now, I will say, and I'm not trying to confuse anyone, because when you talked about the original Onyx Reserve, I don't know if this is intentional or not, and the reason that you added this actual blend to the Onyx, but the Onyx you look at it as a, like you were saying, as a newer cigar smoker, you've never had it before. You look at that really, really just black wrapper leaf. You're like, I'm going to get that throat punch. Like, this is going to kick my ass. And then you light it up and it's extremely balanced. It's mild to medium. It's not, I don't want to say there's not much there, but it's not like what you're expecting at all in an Onyx Reserve.
Yes.
With this, I'm almost expecting the opposite, looking at the branding and everything else. And so it is kind of reminiscent of the experience with the original Onyx Reserve for me, that it is very well balanced and it's not just jumping off, again, throat punch. I enjoy the light on this. What do you think, Nate?
I think initially, for me, just the amount of flavor that's in it punches me in the mouth. And not like I was expecting there to be, especially with that much Nicaraguan and a San Andreas wrapper.
Yeah.
I was expecting a lot of black pepper spices. No, it's not. Even on the retrohale, it doesn't make your eyes water. It's not going to clear out your sinuses. It's got some flavor and some spice there, but it's not as pronounced as some of the other Nicaraguan cigars that we've smoked that just have a ton of black pepper. It's a different type of spice to this cigar. Yeah. But the flavor and the finish of the smoke itself just sits on your palate. It just stays there and stays there and stays there. And I get that a lot with San Andreas.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really like how you said that and how you described that it's the flavors. And so that bold can represent those flavors. It's very bold. It's complex with quite a bit of flavor to it. Have any of the listeners had this or smoking this along with us?
The comments so far are Josh, sharp dressed man.
And then, of course, comment about Steve's voice.
Yeah, we got to. So Matt Beach is out there, and Matt, tell me where you're at again. I forget where you're located, but he said
I don't think he wants to. His wife might be within earshot.
He also said, "Holy shit, I love this guy's jacket." Side note: my wife's ears perked up when she heard that deep, dark, sexy voice. He said, "Also, y'all should see my money blazer. I'd put it up against this pink blazer, but he may win." So
I gotta ask,
Matt, we appreciate you tuning in again this week.
I gotta ask, so with the Onyx, so Onyx has been around 20 years now, and
more or less
late 2000.
Yeah. So the late 2000s?
Late 2000. No, late 2000.
Late 2000. Okay. So I was,
man, you were
20 years. Hey, 20 years.
You passed.
Keep my job. All right.
All right. Another day.
So that Onyx Reserve, that's the only. Prior to this, that's the only Onyx.
That's the only Onyx.
So when you guys are looking at making another cigar, why did you put this under the umbrella of a company that you only have one?
So great question. And I think Onyx, and correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, from a retailer standpoint, though.
Yes.
Right. That sell
the
Onyx Reserve, right?
We do.
Is that it is true blue. You know what you're getting in an Onyx Reserve from the standpoint of a seasoned smoker. So if you're not a novice coming into, in the door, what Onyx Reserve is and what flavor you're going to get from it every time, right? It is, it's now 20 years old, the brand. It's had one cigar, right, Nate, as you pointed out. And so you have Rafael Nadal, who is our head of marketing, head of product capabilities, and the access to the tobacco that AJ Fernandez has, right? We said previously that Nicaragua is what's hot right now. Mm-hmm. And they want to look at a project. Hey, Onyx. This is a great brand that is, again, I use that true blue, right? Yeah. You know what you're getting when you go to an Onyx Reserve. Let's take that and then let's expand on that. Because why? There's opportunity there, right? And 20 years to have a cigar that stands on its own. Tell me the last time that you've seen marketing for Onyx Reserve.
Not very often.
Yeah,
I don't know ever that I've picked up any literature and seen an Onyx.
I don't know how well the Onyx line does for Altadis. I assume very well, because it is one of the, and I think this is kind of obviously it's a success, but also maybe a detriment to some of the brick and mortar shops. It is based on the price point of the original Onyx Reserve. The fact that it is something that I'll see in liquor stores, I'll see at golf courses, I will see. This is what is it, $5 to $8 cigar. The original, I'm not going to speak to this. We'll find out about that here in a moment. But the original Onyx Reserve, it is, like you said, true blue. It is a everyday type of a cigar. Anyone can smoke it. I feel as though a lot of boutique or people that go to the medium to full body stuff, they don't typically, after 10 years, 20 years, they're not smoking as many Onyx. It is a entry level, if you will, not talking about quality, but entry level, because it is something where I'll have people come in the shop and they're saying, oh, I don't, that Onyx was too strong. It was completely mental to them. You know what I mean? And that shows a novice level, and that's not an insult. It's just that I don't feel like those people have tried a whole lot, because it's like, if you think that's strong, try this. This one's just as dark, but yeah, you are going to get your ass kicked.
Yeah.
But I think that it's something that with this one, what is the MSRP for this line?
You put me on the spot.
I did.
You did?
I think the original Onyx is also a good introduction to broadleaf.
It is. And I'll tell you that while he looks up the price point on this.
Please do.
I will say probably the best tasting Onyx. I hadn't had one in a long time. And then I think it was 3 years ago or so, I was in Connecticut at your guys' farm. At Altadis' farm, and it was one of those cigars that was kind of in the pack, was the Onyx.
Yeah.
So it's one of those stories. It's always better, I think, when you have it's like when you're on vacation, the drinks and the cigars and the food taste better. It was one of those that I literally was on my way out to the Connecticut broadleaf being grown on the farms, learning about it, seeing it in the barns and everything else, and smoking an Onyx. I'm like, it's a really good cigar.
Yeah.
Because there's appreciation for the Connecticut broadleaf.
Absolutely there is. And to go off of your point real quick though, Steve, is that you said you don't have a lot of seasoned smokers, is what I got out of that, returning to to that. And I would say nay, that's nay, that's not necessarily correct. And why I say that is because it is a go-to cigar for some smokers, just like the Reserve Real, right? The
Absolutely.
Reserve Real is very mild, creamy. You know what you're getting in that, and you have those smokers. Now, it being at the golf courses, it being at the liquor stores and the little humidors, next to when you're paying for your tea time, that helps brick and mortars. It really does, because then when you smoked it on the golf course and now you're like, hey, I enjoyed that. And they come back and they're asking for that cigars in the retailer.
I think it can go either way, because we've had times where a customer would walk in and they bought a cigar, either from a golf course or it was next to the cash register in the liquor department of a grocery store, and they were dried out. And they smoking like, I didn't like that cigar.
That's cigars in general, though, I feel like.
Yeah, and so, but there are certain cigars that are very popular right there, at the checkout, and then people smoke them. And if those cigars aren't kept right, it puts a bad perception of the cigar into that consumer's
Correct.
mind.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
So they're better off, like, if you smoke it, if you get it from your liquor store and you didn't like it, go to a brick and mortar actual cigar shop and
very good
get
point.
It and try it.
Very, very good point. So, excuse me, Steve.
How's that WhistlePig?
Yeah, it is. I need a little
wet that whistle there.
Little sip of that. We're talking about price points.
Yes, MSRP.
I could have said $8 to $9, but I want to give you a little bit something more specific. It's $8.90 to $9.90. $8.90 to $9.90. You got 9 to 10. There you go. If you want to say that,
8 to 9, 9 to 10, somewhere in there.
Three sizes.
Okay.
Robusto, Toro, and a Magnum.
Magnum, I think it's going to be the 660.
660.
All right.
Yep.
So you're not doing the mini Bellicoso like the regular.
No mini Bellicoso, no Torbusto.
Torbusto.
I like the sizes. I like the rebranding you've done to Onyx, just in general. And you guys branched off on this one. You kind of dressed up this box a little bit more. I feel like with the logo and the trim around the Onyx, kind of punched it up a little bit.
Yeah. It really makes that wrapper jump out, though, right? With those with that color scheme
as well.
And that foil I was saying on the Onyx Reserve is gold
on the footband.
Yeah, and on the Bold is a silver. So you're differentiating, yourself there a little bit. But you're also letting people know, hey, this is a Nicaraguan cigar, because on that secondary band it says Bold Nicaragua on there.
So I don't know if it's the whiskey or just the humidity in the air. As I'm smoking this kind of reminds me, and maybe it is because it's all mental a little bit too, but you got the Bold, you have the really dark San Andreas wrapper. It's like a black cup of coffee. This is a black cup of coffee. I'm getting just a little bit, and again, when I say this,
black.
Yeah, I don't want to deter anyone from trying it, but it's not. There's some cigars that they're bitter. You know what I mean? And actually, I'm going to say this cigar, when I did light it up 18 times or whatever it was the other, last week or 2 weeks ago, it was bitter because I had to keep relighting it. But that's any cigar.
And it was a Robusto size too.
It was a Robusto size, and it lasted about, 8 hours. So that'll tell you how much I was smoking it.
Yeah.
Not saying this doesn't have a great construction. It smokes slowly. But this one, as I'm getting into a little bit more, I'm starting to get a little bit more
dryness.
A little dryness, but almost like a slight spice bitterness, kind of the back of my throat here a little bit. Again, that might be the rye whiskey that I'm sipping on right now, but it's not. That's again, that when I say bitter, I'm not saying. I'll tell you if it's bitter in a bad way. This is something it's just like a hint of it. It adds to it actually.
Yeah.
I was sitting there.
Nate? You say woodiness? Yeah, Dustin says woodiness.
Or like a char, almost like the inside of a whiskey barrel, like a char. No, in my mind, I was trying to compare this to another San Andreas cigar that you guys make, and that's the Romeo San Andreas, which is also made by AJ, if I'm not mistaken.
It is.
And so and that was another reason why when I first saw this, I was kind of curious because, all right, AJ's already making a cigar for Altadis with a San Andreas wrapper. Now he's going to make
that's all Nicaraguan, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's all Nicaraguan. This, obviously working with Rafael, it's going to be a little bit different blend, and they're going for something different. And this is, to me, this is actually smoother than that Romeo San Andreas. I think that one. Agree. I think that one just tries to knock your socks off. When you first light up, I think that one tries to knock your socks off, and this one's like, all right, I'm going to hit you with flavor at the beginning, but then it's going to balance out, and it's going to stay consistent. But I think it kind of backs off just a little bit as you smoke it.
Well, I think that word that you use is key there, and Steve used it before, balanced.
Yes.
Right. That it is very well balanced. When I lit this up, I got quite a bit of that white pepper that I had mentioned before. I'm still getting it's almost like a toasted marshmallow.
Yeah.
That you get out of it, and I don't know if it's a little bit of that char. I haven't really gotten a woodiness from it, but it's a really, really enjoyable. It's not. I would almost say that Romeo San Andreas is like chewy.
Okay,
if that makes sense.
A little bit,
like in cigar terms.
Yeah. We had a question here, so this is a point I haven't really brought it up yet. So those watching right now, but if you listen to the audio, which is usually posted the following beginning of the week, so it'll be like Monday, Tuesday, the audio drops on Spotify, iTunes, and all the other ones, iHeartRadio. But this is a time where 7:30 or so on Wednesday nights, we broadcast live on Facebook on the Bourbon BS podcast page. So follow that, like it, whatever, subscribe, and then also YouTube live. But we did have a question here from Matt. Throw it up here. It's a question. What creates a different smoothness for cigars? The leaf, how it's rolled. He's asking questions here. just asking, when we talk about like kind of the smoothness, the balance, what we're talking about. And I'll answer a little bit of that right away. For me, it's the blend. I mean, this is going back to the basics. You're basically, it's 100% tobacco, and this might be elementary for some, and it might be some news for others. So that's kind of what I like about the listener base here, is that kind of everyone's all over the page.
Yeah.
With cigars, with whiskey. We're not experts. We're enthusiasts. We're in the business, but again, we're always learning. But you have the wrapper leaf is the component you see on the outside. Underneath that is the binder, and that can be usually 1 or 2 leaves as far as the binder goes. And then you have the filler combination. I'm of the opinion that a lot of the strength comes from the filler.
Correct.
Some people say, a lot of flavor. Everyone has different percentages with where you get the flavor, the strength, and everything else. I'm of the belief that most of the strength comes from the filler. Now, what you will see, and why the Onyx Reserve, not the Onyx Bold Nicaragua, is so unique, is that typically when people will look at all these different cigars, you're going to have, well, the darker the wrapper, the stronger it is. The only reason I think that is a stereotype is because typically the darker wrapper leaves, especially like a San Andres or Connecticut broadleaf, you can blend Ligero easier, in my opinion, with the hardier leaves. And that's why you'll see that. Same thing with Connecticut shade. If you have a Connecticut shade, which is, for those that don't know what that is, Connecticut comes from the original seed as far as where that's originated from, and the shade is the cheesecloth that is draped over the tobacco fields. Now that can be done anywhere basically now, but originally that was based out of Connecticut. Now Ecuador is probably the most popular as far as the region because of the cost and the yield you can get from there. We did the Romeo Reserve
1875.
Yeah, the Connecticut Nicaragua is actually done with Connecticut seed down in Nicaragua, so you can do it anywhere. But it's just the blend. So to Matt's question, it is purely the blending. When Josh is talking about Raphael and AJ working on this, they know, it's kind of like a chef. They know what the different tobaccos from the regions, the seed, they'll know what it typically will taste like. And then you kind of go with the Ligero. So again, Ligero's towards the top of the plant, the primings they call it. So you look at a tobacco plant, and then beneath that's Seco, beneath that's Viso. There's other terms like Velato and things like that, but just for simplicity's sake, I'd say Ligero's the 5th and 6th priming. Then you go down to Seco. Ligero's going to have the most strength from the sun and everything else. It will be not as typically flavorful, as far as you sometimes get a little bitterness if you use too much Ligero because of that strength and the nicotine.
Yeah.
And then the Seco's kind of that sweet spot, if you will. You've got some strength, you've got great flavor coming out of that, and it really is it's used a lot on binder and also in the filler as well. And then you have the Viso, which is at the bottom, and not saying there's not much flavor, but that's very combustible. It's a little bit lighter, so you can kind of, in my opinion, and I'm no blender, but you can kind of finesse a blend a little bit with throwing in a little bit of that. You know what I'm saying? So it's not necessarily like the Viso is going to be bland by any means, but it just depends. But Matt, I'll say this, you guys can add or take away from what I'm saying. It's one of those things where it's like a chef using the ingredients, and that's why there's so many different things, because you can literally take out one leaf of the filler, replace it with something else. It could be a different seed, a different region, different country, or it simply can be you take one Viso out and put in a Seco, or take that Seco out, put a Ligero or whatever it is, and you've tweaked the blend enough with strength, and it will affect the flavor. Same thing goes with I remember smoking with when we were down in Miami with Eric Espinosa and Hector, and he was like, they were giving us all these test blends to try out.
Yeah.
He's like, what do you think of this one? And I'm like, give my thoughts. And they said, all right, now put that down, smoke this one. What do you think of this? And I'm like, real similar, but it does taste a little bit different. And simply it was a double binder. So you had the same wrapper, you had the same core, as they called it. And then they had, like, say, one Criollo and one Corojo on one. And then it was like a double Criollo binder on the other. And it tweaked the blend enough that it tastes like a different cigar.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally, it's that simple.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
Do you guys agree, disagree?
I would say that your explanation A+.
I could work in this business.
A+ on that explanation. Yeah, absolutely. It goes down to the blend. You get into those different percentages where you're deriving your flavor out of. But that's why you have in our company, the Grupo de Maestros,
Yeah.
right, which are a group of master blenders and rollers, and they're sitting there each week. They get together and they'll smoke through 7 to 10 different cigars, and they'll rate them. They'll sit in that meeting and they'll talk about everything but the cigar when they're talking, and they go through and then they compare notes afterwards.
Yeah.
And that's their job, to find this perfect combination that gives you this bold flavors, but yet the smooth and complex or complexity of this cigar, I would say.
Yeah, and the other aspect is, we've talked about on previous episodes, is when you are blending a cigar and you're in business to sell cigars on a regular release, you have to have very large yields of tobacco for a certain amount of time to at least make it a project, and hope that, you know, it's kind of like we've talked about on the whiskey side, is that you do the single barrels with small batches, and the goal is to have it taste fairly consistent. But if you're doing single barrel, it's not going to be the same as if you had a big vat like your Jack Daniels, your Maker's Mark, you know, just the your typical, not saying they're bad or good. It's just there's more consistency because they utilize a lot of different, I guess subs. This, you don't have enough wrapper leaf to do this. This is now a limited edition.
Correct.
And even that, you have to have a lot of tobacco just to do a yield that's worthwhile. Sometimes you'll do one where it's only 5,000 boxes or something like that.
Well, I was talking with Tyler a little bit before we began this, and we were talking about a limited edition that we just ran in the Henry Clay Warhawk Rebellious, and which was also out of AJ Fernandez. And that wrapper was a 6-year premium wrapper that he had in his vault, and only had enough to do 1,250 boxes.
Yeah.
And
that's
that
a very
was it.
small amount of cigars, especially for a company like Altadis to do.
Yeah.
I mean, that's definitely a different angle.
Yeah. You won't see that a lot.
No.
You don't see that a lot.
The cool thing about it, though, I will say most of the time, you will see some that are very pricey. But I think most of the time when you see the limited runs, most of the companies in the cigar world are not going to throw this just extraordinary price tag on it. It's just, once it's gone, it's gone. And I hope you like it. And it's, you know, maybe $1. How much was that cigar?
I want to say $10.
Yeah, so $10.
Right,
it's
right
not like you're
$10
seeing these
price
small
point.
batches on all of them, you know, selling for $50, $60 a stick. I mean, this
Right.
is just, which is nice. It's just if you can get it. What do you guys think of this going with the whiskey here? Kind of briefly.
So I mean, I'll start out. I have had this WhistlePig Piggyback before.
You said you really like it.
I did. We were doing some exploratory on the details a little bit before we started, and it looks like it was blended to or put together to be used as a cocktail. I think it stands up great with this Onyx Bold Nicaragua.
Yeah, it really does. And you know, for people that aren't familiar, like WhistlePig, before the Piggyback came out, their youngest one is a 10-year rye.
Yep.
And, you know, so they do a 10, a 12. We had the 12 on the Valentine's Day episode.
Yeah.
They do the 15. They do the 18. And then, but I mean, even with the 10-year, I think in Ohio, that's starting out at 86, 84.
Yeah, 84.
So
yep.
84.99. So, you know, call it $90 after tax. This is what, in the 60s?
50, I think.
Yeah,
50?
MSRP. Yeah. I know. I don't know what it is in
50 to
Ohio,
55?
but yeah, it's about like $49.99.
Yeah.
So you got a $50 bottle, 6 years. What I looked up, so when it say age 6 years on the WhistlePig Piggyback Rye, it's between 6 and 8, I think, is what I read when I was looking into this. It is, they say, weighted average towards the 8. So like they say over 7 years mostly, but the age statement 6 years is the youngest in there. And this is coming out of Canada as well. So it's in the Vermont area. That's where WhistlePig is based out of. We talked about that on that Valentine's Day episode that Nate's referring to when we drank the 12. But this is kind of something that it's a little bit with the shorter seasons in Vermont, it definitely, or in that area, it definitely, the swings are bigger than they would be in, say, Kentucky or elsewhere. So that does give it a little bit different. You were telling a story. So the master distiller with WhistlePig was Dave Pickerel, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And he was with Makers.
He was with Makers. Yeah. Yep. He got to start with Makers and help make Makers what it is today.
Yeah.
And then I believe was recruited from WhistlePig and helped get WhistlePig off the ground. And then from there went on and helped Metallica come out with their whiskey, which is I forget the name of it, but helped them get off the ground. And unfortunately, he passed away a year or 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were saying in some of the research, and there's some great, obviously we appreciate you guys listening to us and everything else, but there are a lot of great blogs and whiskey pages, just like there are cigar pages that you can find a lot of information. And I got to be honest, on doing this is episode 134. We unfortunately do not have the resources to get people from WhistlePig or everyone that we do. This is kind of more of an honest review and how it goes with it. But the story, this is off of the whiskeywash.com, but they had some quotes from Lynch, who is the current person in charge there. And he said, that basically people were making cocktails with the WhistlePig 10 because it is such a great rye. So I assume you're making some Manhattans or other cocktails. So that was the whole thing. I think that's where the conversation came from when people were saying this is kind of more for cocktails and stuff like that. That doesn't mean you can't drink it neat.
I mean, that's a nice cocktail for, using a $50 bottle to make a cocktail.
And that's what it said. Some people are making cocktails with the 10-year, and that's not necessarily good for business because it does. I think when you have the reputation and you have a bottle like that and it's a 10-year, you put it all, if you can do that, that's fantastic. You know what I mean? If you can make a cocktail with $100 bottle or whatever, give or take, good for you. Good for you. Probably charging a lot at the bar for that as well. But it's cool. What is the proof of this again, Nate? What did it say on the bottle?
96.56.
Yeah. And it's called, does it say distiller's strength on there somewhere?
Yes, it does.
So the reason that is because of that Dave Pickerel.
Yep.
He was born in 1956. So they kind of did that little tweak on there to make sure that it proofed out at that, which is, again, I like those types of stories. It's always kind of nice. And Lee Whitaker, who's with Oliva Cigars, you said that he had a tie-in with this as well.
Yeah.
With the family of Pickerels.
Yeah. I believe he was roommates in college with Dave Pickerel's brother.
Okay.
And was a pallbearer at their father's funeral. And so we had the opportunity to sit with Dave and enjoy a drink at Match Cigar and Bar in Jeffersonville, Indiana, shortly before he passed, which was kind of neat. A neat opportunity to have while after he had worked with WhistlePig, and it said that they brought him back, I believe, in 2018 to come up with this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And as much as it's blended for cocktails, I think it's a great sipper too.
Yeah.
Nate, I mean, what do you think so far?
So the thing I always think about with WhistlePig is they always seem to be aged a lot longer than some of the ryes that I think a lot of us are familiar with. Because a lot of times when we think of a rye, we're thinking something
4 year,
2 years to 4 years, somewhere in that range, maybe a little bit more. And so when you're seeing a 10-year, and I remember I brought that Masterson's 10-year rye on.
Yeah, the Masterson's rye, yeah, absolutely.
And then it was so light. The next time I brought it on, it's like, let's compare this to a 2-year rye. And in my opinion, that 2-year rye had so much more flavor. And so, but with this though,
sorry, Masterson.
Yeah, compared a $75 bottle to a $12 2-year rye one.
We'll never have Mastersons on.
They don't watch this.
You don't know that.
That's true.
It's more every week. Last week we had 6,500 views. So, but yeah, if you keep talking like that, we will have less. What else?
I like the 10-year.
The cigar sucks. This whiskey. So I
Thanks,
got to give you shit.
Not this episode. Not this episode.
No, of course not.
The biggest thing that's always kind of kept me away from WhistlePigs is the price points. So,
Yeah.
but I think this one, if it's coming in at that $50 mark, and with the amount of flavor that this has, like I think this is definitely worth it. I think this is definitely worth trying. And at $50, yeah, you can sit there and drink it straight a couple times, or you can use it as a cocktail mixer if you really want to. But it's got so much flavor.
It does.
And balance. Like it's got a lot of spice to it. Not as much spice as I think some of their older ones do.
Yeah.
But it's also got this nice kind of citrus note that balances it out a little bit. I was
going to say there's sweet a little bit with that. Almost like a corn sweetness, but without the corn.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. I mean, if that makes sense, it's kind of got this sweetness, and maybe that's again going back and forth with this cigar.
Well, and that's why I think this pairs so well, because
it was a good call. I'll give you credit on
that spice that you're talking about that you get from it, but yet that sweetness and I didn't read on any of the notes that I read, but I'm almost getting like a cherry out of it.
God,
I know it says
I actually have what they list as their tasting notes.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, say what.
Well, I thought I'd read vanilla on there, right? That you pick up some vanilla notes, like kind of on that the aftermath of
the
it.
Aftermath.
The finish
and the finish. Thank you.
Aftermath,
the afterbirth. It's got a very vanilla afterbirth.
I don't like that one. Aftermath's fine. Finish. Afterbirth. It sounds messy.
But I'm telling you, like when it first hits my palate, I'm getting some cherry notes off there, and it pairs that sweetness, brings out the flavors in this cigar perfectly.
Do you believe that, or are you just giving yourself credit because you picked this bottle to go with this cigar?
No. I think it goes very well.
Okay. No, I agree with you.
What do you think?
No, I agree with you.
What do you think?
I think it's got a nice spice. It is a nice pairing. But so the bottle I agree with. I think I don't know if it's citrus or cherry. There's definitely like a fruit sweetness, which is nice. I don't really dive as far into the flavor wheel as some. I'm impressed though. When you think about the ryes that we're talking about, not typically 6 to 8 years. So to be 6 to 8 years, to have that uniqueness of where it's coming from and sourced and everything else, I think it comes across. I think if you got $50 to spend, or even $30 to $50, $30 to $60, somewhere in that range, and you're going to the store, you're like, I want to get a rye. Try something different. If you see this, and normally you go for, I don't know, something else. Ray Cheshire was saying that he picked up the first bottle of Rye Bullet, the Bullet Rye 95 or whatever. That's another good one, but that's below 30. I mean, that's a great steal of a bottle. When you're getting into this range with some ryes, I think you'll be hard pressed to find something with that kind of age behind it and that kind of uniqueness behind it at $50, give or take.
Yeah.
And I think that's why having this now, after having the WhistlePig 12, which I got to be honest, it did not go over well with the people on that episode, the WhistlePig 12.
Yeah.
I've got about a half bottle of the WhistlePig 15 I haven't tried yet. I've heard great things about that. But I think that happens, especially when you're doing things differently. Again, a reminder to people that aren't really as much into whiskeys and bourbons or scotches or any of those. When I first got into it, that was one of my, new level type of education moments where I thought I was drinking like Glenfiddich, and I had Glenfiddich. I really like Glenfiddich 15, which we featured with Alan Rubin from Alec Bradley. That was like my go-to daily sipper when I was starting to get into whiskeys. And then I like a lot of people, I'm like, all right, the Glenfiddich 18's got to be just even so much better. Completely different product.
Yeah.
Completely different product. I like the 15 more. Good for me because I'm saving money if I'm going to be in that Glenfiddich family. You know what I mean? 12-year was fine. The 15 I really, really enjoyed. And I think that's where you're coming down with this stuff too. Is like if I had to pick between this and the 12 just based on taste alone, I would get the 6.
Yeah.
I'd get the piggyback.
Yeah. I agree.
And again, good for us because we're saving what?
$70 bucks. Yeah. The thing I found interesting is if I smoke the cigar and then take a drink of this, I get more sweetness out of the whiskey. If I drink the whiskey and then immediately take a hit of the cigar, I actually taste more spice out of the cigar.
Yeah.
And it causes the finish of the whiskey. It was weird. Like I drank it and then I could feel the finish of the whiskey start to deteriorate. And then I took a draw on the cigar and it actually brought the finish of the whiskey back. Actually brought it back onto my palate. So it kind of rejuvenated the taste of the whiskey.
Yeah.
Doing it that way.
It's a good bottle.
Yeah. You want me to read what their tasting notes are?
Who's they?
WhistlePig themselves.
Okay.
So on their website, on the nose, cinnamon, black peppercorn, a hint of tangerine and grapefruit zest. So that'd be that fruitiness maybe that Josh was alluding to.
Yeah, yeah.
And then on the palate, I love how the very first thing they say is powerfully spicy.
And see, I mean, I get spice, but I'm not getting.
It's not overwhelming.
No, not at all.
No, it's yeah. And then also with cocoa, cardamom.
I don't know what that means.
Don't get me started on that one. And then cured leather. Like I know what leather is. Cured leather. That's that.
Well,
it's not raw.
Yeah, it was sick, and then they cured it.
Okay. Don't talk about sick right now. And then the finish.
Drink more whiskey.
Yeah, the finish, wonderfully lengthy with baking spices. And then as Josh said, vanilla and hints of citrus. And I definitely get the citrus. Josh got the vanilla. I got the citrus.
I got a little bit of spice, a little sweetness. Ray Chester says, what happened to my shout out? Ray, you weren't paying attention. I actually gave you a shout out. He likes to get a shout out. He's it's morning where he's at in Vietnam. So before his wife leaves, he likes to make sure that he's got the speakers up that, I don't know if that's
Cheers,
because
Ray.
he wants to hear his name and like that he, whatever, or if it like normally he's up to no good. And like the fact that we're saying his name on a cigar and whiskey podcast, it kind of like, I can go to work. He's not going to get in any trouble.
Yeah.
I think that's probably what it might be, but
yeah,
I'm not going to say it.
Cheers. Cheers to you, Ray. Cheers, Lee. If Lee is still watching.
Lee Whitaker's watching.
Hey? Yeah.
So the bottle it's beautiful, and then we'll get to it. It's kind of different than some of the other ones. It's a little more aggressive and more, I think, contemporary.
Yeah.
With that, it's kind of at that angle for those looking at it. It is a different shaped bottle, as Dustin's kind of pointing out. 96.56 proof, 100% rye, pot distilled, small batch, and rye whiskey. Says aged 6 years in American oak barrels. Together we ride. I like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of cute.
RYED.
That's right.
So what they're doing too. You've got the piggyback, the 6 year that we're drinking tonight. We said $50 price point in Ohio.
Yeah.
Then you have the farm stocks, and I believe that they're doing I think on the third batch of farm stocked rye, and their farm stock is I don't believe it has an age statement on it. And that price point here in Ohio, I think, is at the $84 price point.
WhistlePig is going to typically draw a price tag.
Yeah, yeah.
And again, it's the age.
Yeah,
it's the age.
Well, and I remember last year, the state of Ohio did 4 different state picks with WhistlePig, and they released them at different times throughout the year.
Yeah,
and I think each one, Dustin, you might be able to correct me if I'm wrong. I think each one was running $100, $120 for those state picks.
It was around 100 to 110.
100 to 110.
Each one had different taste profile.
Yeah, each one was different. They released them at different times throughout the year. But and I was sitting there thinking, like, man, WhistlePig's kind of pricey. I don't know how many people they're actually going to have waiting in line at liquor stores on a Saturday to get.
They had it.
Yeah, it was just like any other state pick release.
That's it.
Wow.
And one of our listeners, AJ Fernandez, he actually got all 4.
Yeah.
So he's got the whole set. He had a little help.
Wow.
But
yeah, and so the 15 year that you have
Yeah.
Is that the blue label
It is
with
blue,
it
yeah.
says something oaked on it or something?
I believe so.
Yeah. That price point, if I'm not mistaken, was like $225.
It's up there.
in Ohio.
It was a
Yeah.
nice gift. It's, again, half a bottle. Brad Grimsley, who's been on the podcast a year ago, probably. He was just in town this last weekend. But yeah, he gifted me that because he couldn't take the open bottles when he moved to Atlanta. So he gifted me that, and I think 2 other people have actually taken sips out of that bottle or pours out of that bottle before I have. So I'm trying to hide it behind other bottles so that we can actually feature it on the podcast. But
Yeah.
so far, no luck.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I got to bring this tonight.
I am too. Here's what I don't like though.
Yeah.
Is that even on the marketing, and I get what they're saying when you read the story about why they did it, because people were doing cocktails with their more aged bottles, like the 10-year and all that stuff. It might belittle their product if they think it's a mixer, and it's like, well, why is that an $85 bottle if it's a mixer? I think it could belittle it a little bit. But right on the back label, it does say, got to get the light on this. Dave Pickerel returned to our warehouses, like we talked about, to realize his dream of creating the best aged rye whiskey for your cocktail. 100% rye for full spice flavors, aged 6 years for unprecedented complexity, and bottled at his ideal strength. Stir or shake in good company. And, it's, I don't know. I don't think you need to have this in a cocktail.
No.
But they are confident that was the goal, which I can appreciate the fact that that's why they put this product out there, was because they said, hey, if you're going to make a cocktail, you want to have a good Manhattan or something else. And again, I know I'm showing my really deep range of cocktails by saying the same one over and over again that I drink with rye whiskey. But I this is one that I kind of want to try it in a cocktail. So maybe, clearly they know better than me.
I think it's also an introduction into their portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
Is okay, if you're a little hesitant about dropping 90 on the 10-year, 130 on the 12-year, like, all right, try the 50.
Right.
Because I remember one time on a Saturday morning, I stopped by a liquor store, and because they had some bottles there that I wanted to pick up, and there was a box, and it was of the WhistlePig 18. That's what the box said, because there have been a lot of times where they'll just bring a box out, and what's in the box is not necessarily what the box is. They're just using the box to cart stuff out. And so one person further behind me in line is like, hey, what's in that WhistlePig box?
Yeah.
And they're like, WhistlePig 18. They're like, oh, okay. I'm like, you have like 5-6 bottles still on the shelf that no one's bought because it's $400 a bottle.
Yeah.
And they're hiding it behind the counter like, oh no, we can only let one person at a time, or one person, or you can only buy one bottle per person. Like, no, I'm pretty sure at $400, and the fact you still got them sitting on the shelf, let them buy however much they want.
Yeah, about whatever you want. Diana asks out there, do you think it has stronger flavors to show up more in cocktails? I would say probably yes. I think it would be something that you would want to taste the things we're talking about, the spice, it would add more depth to. Dustin says at the 6 to 8 year mark, I think it comes with a little more harshness compared to the other offerings. Harshness to some, I think it's more complexity. I think it's more spice. I think it might bring that out. It's interesting that I'm hearing, and Josh said it, I know they didn't describe it as that, I'm hearing more often with different whiskeys is like cherry seltzer that's coming out in it. And I'm wondering if it's partly because, this is just a kind of off the wall theory, is that cocktails like the old fashioned and the Manhattans have made a huge comeback at a lot of whiskey bars. It's a very traditional cocktail, and there has, especially in that Manhattan, you have that cherry, right? So I think that might be part of it, is that there might be this equation to a cocktail that it fits really well with, is a Manhattan that has that was a Luxardo cherry.
Yep.
That might be part of it. I mean, I just think that the brain works in weird ways, especially when we all drink too much sometimes. I think it starts associating things.
The thing I loved about that question that you highlighted, Steve, so last year for my birthday, went to the restaurant I typically go to for my birthday, and it's one of the only times I'll actually order a cocktail. Normally, if I'm out drinking, if I'm going to drink whiskey, I'm going to drink it neat. Mm-hmm. Not doing shots, but I'm going to drink it neat. My birthday is the only time I order a cocktail, and the restaurant I went to at Easton had a highlighted cocktail that one of their restaurants in New York won an award for bartending, creating a cocktail. And it was a Manhattan with a 10-year rye. And I know that rye, and I really like that rye. And so I was like, yeah, I told my server, I was like, yeah, I'd like to get that cocktail. And he goes, well, what do you normally like to drink? I said, well, I like bourbons and I like ryes. He goes,
Yeah.
Then you're not going to like that drink. I said, why? And this, it speaks volumes of the education that some restaurant servers have. He goes, people that like whiskey and ryes don't like that because they can't taste it.
Yeah.
They can't taste the rye that is in that drink. And I end up having to comp half of them. I'm like, okay, then let me get the old fashioned. And he actually brought me out both. And he brought me the Manhattan and the old fashioned. Didn't charge me for the.
What was the whiskey in both?
The rye was, I believe it was a Bullet 10-year.
No, might have been Bullet Rye.
Or no, it was not.
12-year rye is what they just come out with.
It was something. It was something 10-year rye.
Okay.
And then the one that had
Russell's.
What in Russell's? The one that had bourbon in it. I think that one was just Woodford Double Oak in it. And
Okay.
So he brought me the Manhattan. And
I don't like the expensive one.
No.
Yes, sir.
No,
It'll come off your bill right away.
No, he brought.
You want it back? No, you can finish it. Okay.
He brought me the Manhattan that had the rye that I'd originally wanted to order.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, I'm taking care of that one because it's what you wanted, but I don't think you're going to like it. That one's on me. The Manhattan, thankfully, was on the restaurant because earlier they had spilled some drinks on me. So I got both drinks for free. Sure enough, I go to drink that Manhattan. All I could taste was fruit. I couldn't taste the whiskey at all.
Yeah.
And then my wife tried the old fashioned. All she could taste was alcohol. So then we switch and we're like, yep, this is better.
There you go. Good to have a sidekick at the table.
Yes,
for
but no, it
cocktails.
brings up a great point. As this being a more flavorful 6-year rye stands up to those cocktails. So I think something like that. I mean, this is definitely something like if this would have been in that cocktail, probably would have liked that cocktail more.
Yeah.
I would have paid for it.
Yeah. Interesting.
All right, let's get to the end of part one here. Go to the ratings. Now's the time that we do the rating of the whiskey, the cigar, and also the pairing. So this is out of 10. Some people make it out of 1,000. I don't know why, but they do. So out of 10. You can take it out as many decimal points as you'd like. But yeah, out of 10. So 10 being the highest. Rate the whiskey, rate the cigar, and then rate the two of them together. We will start with the guest of honor. Also, because I like to start with the person that works for the company that is representing one of the products that we're.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
of course,
you.
Josh Bentley.
Yes,
everyone.
absolutely. The cigar, the Onyx Bold. Giving it the rating, going through, thinking about everything that that we had, the flavor profile, the complexity in it, the strength, and then the ash and just the scent of the cigar. I'm gonna give it an 8.5.
Always
8.5. 8.5. And on the rye, I think it's a great rye. I think it stands up to the cigar. I'm going to give it an 8.0.
Just say 8.
8.
Just say 8.
8.0.
God damn. And the pairing out of 10.
The
or 100.
The pairing together, I'm going to give a 8.75. I think is good. 8.75. It's a 9. It's a 9. I really enjoyed the pairing together and what we talked about, what the bourbon brought out of the cigar, what the rye, brought out of the cigar, and then both what the cigar brought out of the rye. So
yeah,
Yeah, a 9, 8.75.
All right. Make sure you get that cleaned up. Nate tried to clean up that ash, and then I feel like it's just a
Nate,
booby trap for
Nate, what do you got?
blazer.
So, cigar and whiskey, I'm an 8, solid. Could bump it up a little bit, but definitely a solid 8. But the pairing I give it a 9. I think these two pair really well, and together each one brings out flavor notes on the other. And so I think it was a really good combination. I think the combination makes them individually better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Now, what was the cigar? I didn't hear the.
It was 8, 8, and 9.
8, 8, and 9. Gotcha.
8, 8, and 9.
Good.
Cigar. So the Onyx Bold Nicaragua from Altadis USA by way of AJ Fernandez with Rafael Nodal. I think this cigar, it's really neat to see what you guys are doing as a company. It's something that, so we talked about this, that Josh and I kind of came into the business around the same time, about 8 years ago. So you're around 2012. And in that time, walking in the door of the industry as cigar smokers, and Nate, you were in the industry before that, if I'm not mistaken.
June 2012.
So right around the same time. You were coming out of a lot of these, boutique, but also just Nicaragua was just heating up. And you had some companies such as Altadis that had brands like Onyx that even at that time, now you said it was the year 2000 when Onyx came out, and it had been kind of just this staple in the Altadis USA portfolio. You have brands like Monte Cristo, Romeo Julieta, H. Upman, Butera, which hasn't expanded. I expect to see a Butera Nicaragua here soon, based on the trend.
But red band.
What I like about it is that there was at some point, the only thing I can really attribute this to is that when you see all this competition, and as some of the big boys that are trying to, they have this sometimes, I guess, bad name because they would like see a company that's doing really well, and then they would snatch it up, or like they would, like the boutique brand would sell out, which that's really good business if that's the goal, right? I mean, you could either continue to build it on your own, or you can do, sell. And then like what Rafael did, for example, it's like he was doing boutique blends or boutique brands, yep. I believe it was, and then was able to start with a new company, start a new venture, and also bring on some of his things. So there's a lot of business behind this, but I saw in the last 8 years that Altadis is a great example that they have listened to the market. They said, how do we stay relevant with the new generations of cigar smokers, and also the kind of evolution of the current cigar smokers? And I think that this is one of those cigars that it is a uphill battle sometimes when it's like someone like myself. I hadn't smoked an Onyx in a long time, and Josh and I had different takes on it. I see it as Onyx does really, really well for you. It's got to be a great, different SKUs for you as far as your portfolio, what sells really well because of the purpose it is for cigar smokers. And some people will smoke the same cigars over and over again. I think that's where, Fuente, for example, has done extremely well for themselves, because people go in, hey, you got any Fuentes? And they buy the Fuente that's been out for a long, long time, like a Chateau Natural. It's like just like clockwork. I mean, this is
Rothschild.
This is, and this is not a bad thing, but it's like when people dog, like from the craft brew standpoint, they're like, well, and like if you drink Bud Light, you don't really drink beer. And it's like, pretty sure Anheuser is writing some major checks based off of Bud Light, and the craft brew that you think is so cool is struggling to get by. So there's different angles of it. And I'm sure, and we saw that a lot of the craft brew makers sold out too, like an Anheuser or other companies, because that's part of the business. This cigar, once people give it a shot and they kind of maybe differentiate it from your old Onyx, but I think some Onyx smokers will smoke this, and based on what we were saying, they thought kind of like what I did, which was it is balanced. It is stronger. This is stronger than what I'm used to, but it kind of reminds me of the Onyx flavor. You know what I mean? For lack of better description. Like, this is a bold cigar. This is kind of what I thought Onyx was when I first started smoking it. Now this is stepping it up, and I really enjoy this cigar. I'd give this the Onyx, this Bold Nicaragua project, I'd give it a 9 based on price point and what you guys are setting yourself out to.
Yeah.
I would give it, if I'm looking at a whole humidor and what would I grab, more of an 8 because it is not necessarily my go-to, because it actually is, as I'm smoking it, it's bolder. I mean, it's not an inaccurate term as far as the marketing behind it. It's bolder. So I have to be in the mood for this. And recently, just like anyone else goes through, like, you know, their phases and stuff like that, I've been gravitating back towards the medium. What do you guys give this strength? Like, as far as your rating, do you know?
Yeah.
Is it strong? Is it full, or is it medium to full, or is it medium?
No. It's strong.
Okay.
Yeah. It's strong. It's 1 mark less than our most bold cigar.
Yeah. I think I do it on this show a lot, is that I am one to look at price. If this was something you came out with and it was like a $16 MSRP, my rating wouldn't be up there, just because it's like, okay, you guys have put out other cigars in that price point, knowing your portfolio, that this one, it stacks up to everything else out there. I think at the $8 to $9 range, or $8 to $10 range, as we were talking about. In the higher range, it may be not as complex. It may not have the finesse of like another one of your guys is like a Monte Cristo Espada Oscuro. You know what I mean? And that's nothing against AJ or anything like that, but it's like I find that there's a little more complexity to it. So that's why I'm paying $15 for a Espada Oscuro.
Yeah.
But this one is going to kind of do the trick as well at a lower price point. So yeah, definitely, I give it a 9, all intents and purposes. The whiskey's kind of the same way. When I think of a rye, this is a little bit sweeter, and that's what those fruit flavors I think that we were probably talking about. Is I think that this is one that, when I think of some of my favorite ryes, and Josh brought on the first time he was on, was that E.H. Taylor Straight Rye. That, and I keep going back to it, and I know a lot of people like the different years, but like a Willet Rye, 3-year, now 4-year, even that similar price point, and the E.H. Taylor's a little pricier, more spice, more spice, little cinnamon. I would say it's kind of like Christmas Day, you know, it's like ginger snap, cookies with a little bit of sitting by the fire type thing. This is more drinkable. It's
more enjoyable for, like, the humidity. I know I got poked a little bit before, because it is a little bit more humid. It's not cooler outside right now, but yeah.
And to that point, I think that I understand why they did it for the marketing of a cocktail mixer, is because if you do that with this, a bold, spicy, even though they put it on there, this is not as bold and spicy as some rye. So I'd give this for all intents and purposes, a 9 as well. And the pairing, I'd give it to take it out a decimal point for you guys, is an 8.5.
Yeah.
Because I'd be really interested, and the reason I say that, I'd be really interested to drink this on its own and smoke this again, which I will on its own, because doing it together, it brought out a lot. But if I stuck with a cigar, and the only reason 8.5 is a great rating, I think, for a pairing, especially when we've never done this pairing before, is the cigar on its own. It stands on its own. The whiskey, I think, would do that as well. Doing it together, it changed it, and it brought out a lot. So that's where it's, I don't know why. I just don't think it's like that 9 to 10 rating as a pairing, but very good. 8.5 is I think, a very good rating. So they did not take away from each other.
Let me ask you. So to take this in a different aspect, and I know this isn't usual, but what other drink, what other bourbon would you think with this cigar? I mean, this was the plight that Steve and I a couple hours ago we're having, where we have both enjoyed this cigar. I think that the 9 is very good. I would like to amend my previous rating and go along with your statement with a 9. But in all seriousness, and Nate, you tell us, because we're a little dumbfounded on this. What other drinks? We were talking about the Woodford Reserve, the wheat, that red label that came out in the latter part of last year, with everything that's going on, really debuted, I think, this year. We were going over that, and a little bit sweeter because of the wheat content. Well, I mean, what do you think?
I I was kind of thinking something from the Wild Turkey brand.
Spice.
A little bit of
Need more spice.
I mean, not
So
necessarily.
you're going to different sweetness.
Yeah, not necessarily something that will completely contradict it, but or even some of the double oaks that we had a couple weeks ago.
That's where I'm heading.
Yeah.
That's where I'm heading. I think an oakier
that high bank double oak or that Traverse City barrel proof.
But to that point, though, Josh, we might be wrong.
Yeah. Well, and what were we trying to get, or what did I say that I was trying to get?
I was also
Steve?
thinking the Russell single barrel, not the rye, not the single barrel rye, but the Russell single barrel bourbon.
So yeah,
I was trying to get Nate for this, the Elijah Craig toasted barrel.
Yeah.
That is being released.
Which I got an email.
Week.
I got an email from the distillery to the podcast email, which is I love the fact that we're starting to get some of these press things.
Awesome.
And it was about the Elijah Craig toasted barrel.
2 stores.
And I responded back, I'm like, I can't wait to try it. I hope we can feature it on there. I didn't full out just ask for something because I think it was just a mass email or whatever.
Yeah.
I should just ask next time.
Should just ask.
I should just ask.
But yeah, I mean, explore. I mean, a little bit more. I think it would be cool. And for those of you who are listening, you pick up the Onyx Bold Nicaragua. Let us know. Let us know what you're drinking. Let Steve know in the comments in weeks to come. And I'd love to know.
Or you buy a box and you try one cigar with 20 different bottles
in one day.
Man.
I will say that I think this would really go well with. I know this. We're talking about alcohol. I think this would go well with a good cup of coffee, which speaks volumes for the cigar. I know a lot of cigars go with coffee, but just like a lot of cigars go with ryes and bourbons and other whiskeys, this is one that I think would maybe not first thing in the morning, but nightcap I saw on the feed. I think it was Dustin. I think this is a cigar after a steak dinner. And you already had I love going out to the restaurants and I'll have a cocktail or whiskey before. Have a nice Cabernet or depending on what we're eating, like Zinfandel, something like that. Red wine with the steak dinner, and then afterwards either go back to a whiskey or sometimes I really do like going to a coffee for a dessert.
Yeah.
And this is one, espresso.
Yeah.
That this would go all right. So I got this cigar. I'm gonna light it up after dinner, after a steak dinner. Hanging out with family, friends, date night, guys, whatever it is. This is something that I would light up around a fire. Yeah, with a coffee and then maybe another 3 whiskeys.
Well, and it's funny because one of the notes that I was thinking in my head earlier when we were talking about the cigar was if you were to chew a dark roast coffee bean, just pop the bean in, that kind of flavor is kind of what I was thinking earlier.
I got you. Well, at this point, we're gonna round out part 1. For part 2, if you guys are listening on live, stay with us. If you guys are listening to the audio, check out part 2, which is 134, part 2, point 2 when we actually post it. But we're going to be talking about, how did I frame it? It's basically about who cares about your opinion is the way I framed it. And I think this is a very relative topic, obviously, these days, and then also anytime, because I think this is a constructive type of conversation. And I'm going to try to bring in some of the audience members in this conversation and also the audience members not only in the garage, but also on the feed. So check it out. Part 2 here. I want to thank our sponsors. Tinder Box at Easton. They kind of set, this is the core of this whole podcast. Your local brick and mortars really can be a great community starter for you at any age, any situation in life. And that's how this whole thing kind of started. And now it's branched out and grown beyond that. People like Josh with Altadis USA. The support you guys have given us in the podcast, it's helped us grow. It's helped the community grow. I always love having you on here, and you're welcome anytime. As I've told you, you don't always have to bring amazing whiskeys, especially out of your personal collection sometimes.
Yes, he does.
Doesn't always have to. But I appreciate you bringing the new stuff. This is one of the things that we talked about when we did year 2 of the sponsorship, is that if there's an opportunity to highlight something new, it's a great forum for that. Yeah. So I hope that you guys do check out the Onyx Bold Nicaragua, as well as all the other Altadis USA new releases, and obviously staples as well. Be a cigar company. The gold and silver are available. I'll probably end up smoking that later tonight, or obviously early in the morning, whatever. And then Nate and I are actually wearing the shirts. Josh got his for being such a big sponsor and supporter of the podcast. Tyler Jones is a new patron customer on patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast. We had a couple people asking where they get their t-shirts. Bryant I know Dustin threw it out there on the feed, so I appreciate that. It's got the slogan I thought of one night when I was drinking, which is pour one more, light up another. We'll figure this out together, which is, I think, a good summary of what we do on this podcast. And so we'll figure this out together, kind of leads into part 2. On the back is the logo. So I want to thank it. Also, Todd, who does the t-shirts for us. They're the Tri-Blend t-shirts, next level, very comfortable,
great.
Very breathable.
Yes.
Do all sorts of activities in them. That being said, guys, cheers to part 1, and thank you, Josh, for being here, and thank you for sticking around for part 2. Everyone else, we're going to take a quick break. Those listening to the audio, check out part 2, and happy Whiskey Wednesday, and cheers. Cue the guitar.
What are we smoking for part 2?
Josh. So those still listening on the live here, this is what the audio doesn't hear. Josh, when he comes, he's keeping up with tradition. He typically will bring something unique.
Oh, I was asking you that. I thought you would draw something from the box. So
no,
not when Josh Bentley was.
Yes.
No. So going off of what you said, Steve, I think maybe one of the first times. It might have been when we had that the rye, the E.H. Taylor rye.
Yes.
I think we smoked that Port Laranaga.
Was that the first time?
Was that the cabinet?
I think
it might have been the second time. I
you know
what? I've been on too many times to. But the last time we smoked, if I'm not mistaken, did we smoke my personal blend?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes,
we smoked my personal blend. Yes, yeah, you're correct, Dustin. I'm sorry, I only brought 3.
Yep.
That I got to roll in. Excuse me, that was rolled for me. It was a blend that I got to put together.
You put it together.
And was rolled. This time, I brought something special from La Flor de Copan. Muster it up.
Ray Chester says, I like that Josh got the same size shirt that Steve is wearing. I got an XL on. He's got a large. All right.
I got a large. Okay.
Yes. All right.
So
this is the old classic random non-banded cigars in a Ziploc double lock baggie.
A Lancero.
Yeah.
From La Flor de Copan. It has quite a bit of age on it. And I mean, we can talk about some flavors. I know it's not what we do in part 2.
Absolutely we can, yeah.
But enjoy. Okay, this is out of the Josh Bentley personal humidor. So
and I want you to
gentlemen, I just want you to know, since you guys are here and you appreciate fine cigars, I brought one for you guys too. Okay,
and I'm gonna step out for a moment.
So
well, and the other
go. Something very special. Yep.
The other thing, this is the 3rd new cigar that we have featured from Altadis this year.
The 3rd new
because the Onyx Bold.
Yep.
Before that, we did the Romeo and Julieta Reserve Real Nicaragua.
Yep.
And then the first one we did was the Connecticut Nicaragua.
The Connecticut Nicaragua.
So this is the 3rd cigar that you guys have. At least the 3rd cigar you've come out this year, but 3rd that we featured on the podcast.
And the start of quarantine, we did the cigar of the year as well.
That came out last year.
Okay.
It's the rain. Yep. And I actually smoked one of those yesterday, and I posted a picture of it on the Bourbon and BS community page.
I commented on it.
Yeah, we've got quite a few boxes. For those of you who don't know, the reigning #1 cigar of the year currently is the Aging Room Nicaragua, which was blended by Rafael Nadal
and AJ Fernandez. Yep.
And it was specifically that box press Toro, right? That was #1. And that's
the Maestro, which is the Bellicoso.
Oh, it's Bellicoso. Yep. Torpedo for those of you.
Torpedo. Yeah.
It has a point to it. There you go.
Yes.
Yeah, I smoked one of those yesterday because it was one of those cigars I hadn't had in a while, and I had commented when I posted the picture, like, we don't get asked for that cigar a whole lot, which is weird. Normally we throughout the year, especially when the ratings come out. Yes, it was huge when the ratings came out, but then it just
96, yeah.
It's It's a 96 rated cigar.
And I commented because I mean it's so odd because it's so different from market to market.
Oh,
and
why do you think that is? Like with the number one cigar of the year?
Because I mean we have other brick and mortars in this Columbus market that can't keep it on the shelf.
Really?
And so I
I
don't know how broad.
Media.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know how broad the term market is, but I mean, it's been on back order. Trying to get it in, but
anyone listening, Tinder Box at Easton in Columbus, Ohio. If you're looking for the Bellicoso,
number one cigar of the year, the Maestro Bellicoso. Yep.
Tinder Box at Easton.
Yep.
614-475-7872, 4028 Towns Fairway, or eastontinderbox@gmail.com.
Yeah.
I don't know. Tinderbox might be the reason why that cigar is on back order.
We did get a lot of it.
Yeah.
We went hard.
We actually have a couple regulars that every time they come in, they'll pick 4 or 5 different cigars.
Yeah.
That's always one of them.
Yeah.
There's a couple guys
it's
every
consistent
single
seller
time.
to some that actually really do enjoy the cigar. I find that the cigar of the year, before we get started on part 2, which I'd like to do here, but the cigar of the year, especially with aficionado, you have that real big bump in the beginning, because a lot of times it's a cigar that, not necessarily in recent years, but a lot of times it's something that surprises people. They're like, really? Okay, I get it. Like, Aging Room Nicaragua. When I see that list coming out, that's not one that I think would
I was surprised.
Capitalize a list just based on the fact that it's Aging Room, it's not as well known. Nicaragua, it's an AJ Fernandez blend that he worked with Raphael on. It just, after you come off of the EPC, after the Eye of the Shark, after the Andalusian Bull, like Cigar Aficionado, I felt like they were like kind of in this realm of these very unique cigars, or there's a reason behind it. And then we get back to it. It's like, hey, here's almost like a sleeper. This is because we think it's a very good cigar.
Yeah.
Which the other ones are very good cigars. Don't get me wrong. They're excellent cigars. But it was like back to like,
just hated it when
it was back to this point where it's like, no, this is a $12 cigar you can get any day of the week usually.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, I think that's great.
And so what does that make when it has the aura that you might not necessarily be able to get it?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, now you can't.
Which was the case with the with the Bull, with the
2 years in a row you had a limited production cigar.
Yeah.
Get number one. First was with the Andalusian Bull, and then the next year with the Fuente Don Carlos Eye of the Shark.
Yep.
They were both limited production cigars, and then also where we may get a box or two here and there, and then also we got tons of people coming in and like, hey, you guys got that? Yeah, it should have been here last week.
Yeah.
So then that begs the question, what would it have been if you couldn't get that? So if you ordered that, right? And I mean, Tinder Box ordered the number one cigar of the year, the Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua Maestro, and you couldn't get that in, or you only got one box.
Yeah.
Then that box went super fast because, right, you were either piecing out one by one or that, and you create this aura around it, right? And you limit it artificially, I might add.
Mm-hmm.
And does that add some type of exclusivity?
Oh, yes, it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it doesn't help. It doesn't really help anyone.
It doesn't
help the consumer. It doesn't help the retailer. It doesn't help the manufacturer, other than the mystique. Because the mystique is one thing if it's readily available, or at least it will be available. The problem is that when you rate something so highly, that's cute and all, but if no one is able to smoke it or sell it, or in the whiskey world, drink it or sell it, who are you helping? Because you get people coming in, and it's like, there are some consumers in the cigar world, especially, where it's not like, oh yeah, the WhistlePig 12 year got the rye of the year with the got the double gold medal. We don't have that, but we have the piggyback. Completely different product,
right?
Where you have some of these cigars, like this the Maestro.
Yep.
The Maestro Vitola. It's like, we don't have that, but we have the 6x52 Toro. Oh, but you don't have the the Bellicoso, and we're like, no, we don't. It's on back order, but we were able to
Same
secure
blend.
some of these. Same blend, and it's just it doesn't have that torpedo head. They're like, okay, thanks.
Yeah.
And you're like, so you really like it's the same goddamn tobacco. You know what I mean? So at the very least, you should be able to sell it. That's the whole point. Is that a cigar aficionado is a different caliber just based on the prestige of the publication. But I encourage anyone out there listening, if you're looking at some of these things, you're looking at the ratings, look at multiple publications. I love Cigar Snob. I really do like the people, Calvinos, that are behind Cigar Snob. I like them. They have great ratings. I think a lot of times that are in line with what I like to smoke. So I think there's some similar palettes there. So I find the one that when you look at it and you're say year 2, 3, 4, 5 into smoking cigars, don't just go for the number one because one publication says it. Find that publication that throughout the year you try some of their highly rated cigars and you're like, I really like that. And then look at their top 25 for the year. And I think you might see that we now as retailers, and I think this goes for any industry or anyone that's an enthusiast in cigars or other like whiskeys or whatever, it's like, that is very good. But now in 3 months, you will not be able to find that bottle or it's going to go up in price. But if you like that, then you start listening, like try this, this, and this. Now everyone wins. You have the opportunity to try something new. The retailers have a chance to sell something, and you're not just going away empty-handed and everyone's just like frustrated with,
I was kind of thinking of it as an opportunity. Like, say we didn't have the aging room Nicaragua. Like, yeah, we don't have that right now, but tell you what, we do have some other cigars that are blended by Rafael Nodal.
Or other aging rooms, right? Yeah.
Something else that, comes out of the same factory or blended by the same person. Because, if you got a number one, obviously you're doing something right.
Yeah.
So, they're obviously making some good cigars.
What I find really on a related note, and then we'll start part 2, is that we get a lot of times like, hey, what AJ Fernandez do you have? And it's like, well, let me walk down this wall of cigars.
That's a loaded question.
AJ Fernandez, what has his name on it? This. What has his like name behind it and his tobacco behind it? This. Boom, 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 boom. And it's like, oh, really? I didn't know that like Romeo San Andreas was an AJ. I didn't know. We'll get that. The Bold Nicaragua is a new one from AJ Fernandez. Like, yeah, it is actually. Like, well, okay, I'll try that then. So I think that was something I was saying about Altadis as well. Having that keen observation that when you have someone with a hot hand, what better way to bring people not only that are brand loyal already to try something new, but people that are loyal to maybe a blender or something else. And you're like, well, this Monte Cristo. I'm like, well, I don't really smoke Monte Cristos. And you're like, well, which ones have you? Well, like the classic's too mild for me, and the white, it's good, but I'm kind of into fuller body cigars. It's like, well, okay, here's an AJ, whatever. You like a medium bodied Monte Cristo Nicaragua right there.
Yep.
So, all right, let's get started in part 2 here.
Yeah.
And thank you very much for sharing this. I'm going to have you explain this a little bit further as we get into it. I'm still smoking the Romeo, or I'm the Onyx. Talking about Romeo.
You started a little later.
I did.
I just lit it up.
Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast. This is episode 134, part 2. I want to thank all the audio listeners for tuning in on both parts. Part 2 is where we go kind of beyond the BS. The subject tonight for Beyond the BS or part 2 is who cares about your opinion, which I think is a very relative topic right now and always. But I think this is something that I'm interested to see where this conversation goes. I am joined still by Josh Bentley from Altadis USA. Josh, thank you for sticking with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Josh is smart. He when he stays in town, he Ubers here just because he doesn't know where the nights go.
Yeah.
Smart.
Yeah.
Super smart.
Absolutely.
You don't have to take a limo every time, but it's nice that you Uber here safely.
Thank you.
Nate Hale as well on the microphone here and on the camera. On Wednesday nights, we do it around 7:30. We do live on Facebook Live and also YouTube Live. So join us every week. And this is where, especially for part 2, I like the questions we had in part 1, but part 2, I've got Dustin Bovey, who is a part of the podcast crew here and is on the podcast as well many times. We have, can I say that you're here, or is this all right? So wearing a snazzy Espinosa Cigars polo in the audience is Tyler Jones, who is the newest addition to the sales team at Espinosa Cigars. He has also been on the podcast, and we appreciate having you in the audience. And then we have Sean Wilkinson, who has been on the podcast as well. Great episode. Check his out. I wish I knew what the number was, but we'll have to get him back on. 93. He knows it. Because I think it's on his business card at this point. Yeah. He wants to do an episode with him and his wife, and I am excited and also dreading that podcast. That'll be like, wintertime one where we're just like, all right, let's get after it, man. Yeah. Let's get after it. But I want to include these guys as well. And I also want to include all of you in the audience in this conversation about, again, who cares about your opinion? I want to thank our sponsors on the screen. If you're watching us live, it's mentioned in the first part. You can get a t-shirt. Josh and I were talking about some more swag for the higher tiers. Now we have 3 tiers, and you can donate whatever you want, or not really donate, but contribute whatever you want as a patron. Patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast. Set it up now. We're really easy. You can click on $5 a month, $10 a month, or $25 a month. But again, when you click on any of those, you can punch in any dollar amount. It helps us do all this stuff, like the StreamYard, which gets this feed out there, posting it. This is something that has kind of grown at this point beyond a hobby and something we do. And our sponsors like Altadis USA and Josh been a big proponent of us doing this. A little different than your typical cigar podcast, a little different than your typical whiskey podcast. Part 1, we talk about the cigars and the whiskey, which I really enjoy. And then part 2, we go again beyond the BS, which is kind of like hanging out, having some cigars and smokes with your buddies, family get-togethers, friends, whatever, at the bar, just in a local cigar shop. Or just, like I said, even if you're not drinking or smoking, you're just hanging out with friends, this is kind of the conversation that the second half of the night gets to. Also, Tinder Box at Easton in Columbus, Ohio. They have a great special. Someone asked what that is. Sorry, I don't have the actual details. Follow Tinder Box Easton on Instagram or Facebook, and you'll be able to find out what that special is. And we do ship as well. So it's including an Altadis brand, Trinidad Espiritu. And that is also an AJ Fernandez blend.
Yes.
That Rafael worked with him on.
Yep.
Yeah. So Rafael Nodal, who is the guy behind all the marketing right now, and also behind just basically the whole blending process as far as working with all the teams and people that you guys have. So check that out. Tinder Box at Easton.
Real quick, Steve, how does one sponsor? How can one contribute if they would want to contribute? Patreon.com/Bourbon
BS podcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's the different tiers?
So $5, $10, and $25. If you do the $5 tier a month, after 6 months, you'll get one of these t-shirts, which we talked about in part 1. And then $10 after 3 months, you'll get a t-shirt. And if you do $25, I will send it out within the first month. I just need your t-shirt size and also where to send it. And like I said, Josh and I were talking about $25 tier is about to have some more swag entered in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And want to get you a cutter or lighter?
And there's something else that comes with that $25 tier, Steve?
So, yeah, for anyone that's interested, and we haven't done it yet because this is new, but we will do a either StreamYard or Zoom call with the guys that are involved with the podcast. So myself, at the very least, Nate, Dustin, anyone else that wants to be a part of it, any $25 tier member, we can do a virtual HERF once a month.
Yeah.
Neat. Liz doesn't know about that yet.
That's way beyond the BS.
And if you want to spend more money to not have to talk to us, then that's fine too. I understand.
And then you can also
respectfully decline the invitation to the remote HERF and drinking. And
then you can also do we've had a couple people do it where they just donated like one large amount. And as soon as it went through, they canceled it so that way it wouldn't renew every single month.
Yeah,
we've had that happen as well.
Yeah, you can do a one-time thing and just cancel it, and then it'll charge your card. And if you're local, like Bobby Hirschman was able to, he's not local, but he was able to support us without using Patreon, which is fine. If you guys don't want to use that, don't have your card out there, we'll figure out something. Just contact the podcast, bourbonbspodcast@gmail.com, or just any of our social media as well. All right, guys. When we're talking about opinions, it's I don't know if anyone is who has a Twitter account. Josh Bentley
has one or uses it.
Well, all right, has one for starters.
Yes.
Who uses it? Josh, do you use your Twitter account?
Yes.
Now, are you an active poster, or are you a just kind of like me mostly, which is I'm more active on like Facebook and Instagram for obvious
I would say I'm
reasons.
more of a consumer.
Yeah.
Now
you're a
I
voyeur.
have it set up to where my Instagram posts go to both Twitter and to Facebook. And so I hope it looks like I'm an active user, but you know,
it's
more
all
or
links
less.
to Instagram.com, and then you click on it, it goes to Instagram.
But no, I would say I'm more of a consumer on
I
that.
am too. Every once in a while, I'll like try to comment and everything like that, but I just am not active enough. I don't know, because I guess what really kind of sparked this conversation for me when I'm thinking of topics and with you guys on it, and again, the guys in the garage and everyone listening, it's as we all know, it's Facebook is getting more, in my opinion, social media in general is getting more towards telling people the comments, the responses, which I found a lot in, depending on what your social circles are or the interactions you have on a daily basis, even in person, politics, just opinions and in just the way things should be or whatever it might be. I feel like Twitter is the prime example for those of you that have a Twitter account or know what I'm talking about. It is purely just to not have a conversation. It's to see what is said and then say what you think. No holds barred. There's really no dialogue. So, yeah. So who the
a lot
cares?
of shouting.
It's shouting, but it's you know, when it says who cares about your opinion, I feel like there is at this level of where we're at with all the things going on in the world and US and everything else. When it comes down to it, you know, Josh being in sales, and I've known him now for almost 8 years, we've been able to develop something that is obviously there's the business side of it, but many conversations on both sides, personal and otherwise, where it's just like career, you know, talk, but it's not, it's like, hey, off the record almost.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you value someone's opinion, you ask more questions. You listen to what they're saying, in my opinion. You say, hey, this is what I'm going through. This is what I'm struggling with. This is what I think. What do you think? And it's not just a bait on a hook saying, what do you think? Just so, because I already know what you kind of think about this issue. And now I'm just going to kind of hang it out there, and then you're going to bite at it. And I'm just going to like try to rip you down, which I think that's a lot of the dialogue, if you will, or a lot of the conversations right now. It's not pure dialogue. It's that thing that's been going on before, I think, where we're at right now, where, you know, when you're talking to someone, speaking with someone, let me change the semantics of it. When you're speaking with someone, we talked about it a lot, I think, in the last 5 to 10 years, if not sooner, but, or if not, yeah, like sooner. People just wait for their turn to talk. Now it's not even waiting for their turn to talk. They're just word vomit. It's this is what I think. What do you think? Do you agree with me? Cool. You don't agree with me? You're wrong. And here's why. And a lot of times the here's why is nothing to do with your opinion. It's purely my opinion. And I think that we're having a major breakdown. That's why I kind of wanted to introduce this and see what you guys think. And again, you know, like Cesar is already out there. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. That's a great way to look at it. You know what I mean? It's you got to get to know the person. But I feel like that step is not there anymore. It's all just really sensationalized. I think it's all just I'm gonna tell you why you're wrong. And if you agree with me, cool, we can talk for hours. If you don't agree with me, I'm just going to say, this is
Unfollow.
Why. Unfollow.
And
but they
block.
don't. No one unfollows. No one blocks. They just go after it. Like, it's shocking to see some of these on Twitter. It's amazing when I follow some celebrities, and then it's like you see people that I randomly followed at some point on Twitter. You know what I mean? And now it's Facebook. It's people I've known. But now in the cigar industry, you get like a lot of people that want to be your friends on Facebook because you're in a certain industry. Now all of a sudden it's like I don't know this person. I've never met him, but now it's like I've got him on my Facebook feed, and then it's just like I don't know why you're so angry right now. But I don't really comment because I'm kind of like you, Josh, where I don't really get active with it. But it always shocks me, especially with Twitter, especially some of the high profile accounts that are very voiced when it comes to political things. that you'll see this and you're like, oh man, so like it out there, and then I look and I'm like, holy shit, there's like 13.4
Yeah.
and no one's listening to anyone. It's just like shots fired. You're fucking wrong. And it's like, so everyone's wrong, or is everyone right? So I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, it's like, I just feel like we are missing a lot right now.
Oh, okay.
Nate, you want to start us out?
I don't know. I can keep talking for an hour. I don't care.
Yeah, you can. No,
No, I can't.
I remember, I mean, when I first started any of my social media accounts, like when I first got on Facebook, it was a way for me to reconnect with high school and college friends.
Right.
And, just keep in touch and, talk about what you're up to and stuff like that. I started Instagram and Twitter when I became a cigar rep. So that way I could post pictures of what I was smoking, where I was going to be at, where I was hanging out at. And, that's, kind of like Josh, you post a picture on Instagram, it automatically links to Twitter and Facebook and stuff like that. And that's what I was doing just to, put it out there, and I think now, it's kind of shifted a little bit.
How so?
I think it's more, I mean, now over the last, call it 8-10 years, it has become kind of a minefield, where people just, you had a very concerned look on your face.
I just lit up this. Sorry.
Okay.
For those that
I thought it was
only listen to part 2, this is still a little bit of a cigar and whiskey podcast as well. What's the cigar we're smoking? I'm sorry, Nate.
No.
Hold that thought. Really?
Yeah. So this is a unbanded Lancero out of La Flor de Copan in Santa Rosa de Copan, Honduras. It's our factory. It is a lone region, if you will. There are no other cigar factories near or around us. And in the northern region, where you find most of them in the southern region. And this was a cigar that has a lot of age on it. It's not in our national brand portfolio.
Okay.
And they knew that I liked Lanceros, and it was a gift. So I have gifted it to you.
Okay, I got a couple questions here.
Yes.
One, is this going to be in production at some point?
That is yet to be determined.
Is this going to be a Josh Bentley project?
That is yet to be determined.
You're not going to give me shit.
I am not at liberty
How much age?
to say.
Can you tell me that?
At least 6 years.
All Honduran?
Majority Honduran.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. I wish I could give you more.
I also do. More cigars or more information?
Both.
Okay. I'm not trying to pump you up, but I just lit this thing up, and this is reminiscent for those that have been down to another country. This is very reminiscent of a farm roll. Not only like this reminds me of Monsdale from Casa del Habano at Club Habana. And that might be just the initial thought, but there is that salty sweetness that you do not find in most tobaccos in Honduras.
Yes.
Okay. We need to continue this conversation about the cigar as months and years go on. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Enjoy.
And not sharing any information on this cigar.
I'm sorry. I wish I could give you more.
Cigars and information again. Nate, go on.
He told you origin and age.
It's not. No, that doesn't.
No. I think we've seen kind of you bring up the topic, who cares about your opinion? I think it depends on what the topic of conversation is. Because when we post pictures of cigars or someone posts pictures of their workout in the gym or something like that.
Just talking about my accounts here.
Like you're
someone
like, but no, people do that. They do want some sort of, not recognition. And I'm not saying that they're
there's a little bit of recognition there, I think, or
I'm not,
at least
I'm not
stimulus back, right?
I'm not trying to say like you're fishing for attention, but you're putting it out there and you want people to like what you're putting out there. You know, if you're posting a picture of a cigar on Instagram, you want to get as many likes on that picture as you can. If you're posting a picture of or you're posting a gym check-in, like you want a conversation to happen. But then there's the other side where people are just saying what they think and they don't care what anyone else has to say, but they want people to say something, if for no other reason for them to be able to react and respond to it. Whether positive or negative.
They're fishing for something.
Fishing for something, but you can be, I mean,
you're fishing for a reaction.
Well, at the very least, I think anytime you post something on social media, you are not fishing, yes, but maybe it's more of like, if no one is liking or no one is commenting, there's no dialogue afterwards. There's no, like, I'm not even what I was talking about, where it's just like disagreeing and all that stuff. But it's like, if you don't have any reaction, then what's the point? I mean, there's no reason to post a picture of a cigar. You were talking about like the gym check-ins and something like that. I did that way back when I first restarted my, call it, fitness or health journey. And I've never made it to the point where it's like, I've been that person that's like, and now I'm a bodybuilder. Now I'm a life coach. Now I'm going to tell you what to do. It was simply me doing it almost as an accountability. We've talked about it earlier on the podcast episodes, like probably 2 years ago, where it was me doing it almost to hold myself accountable.
Yeah.
And the comments went from, hey, driving by the parking lot doesn't count for working out, even though you're checking in, just like joking about it. And then when I lost some, like the weight, and especially when I like lost 50 pounds and I was looking healthier, now it was people that I knew asking questions. Some people actually started going to the gym with me, and I was like, hey, I'm not an expert. I'm not a personal trainer, but I can show you what I know, what I'm doing. Nutrition wise, I can show you what I'm doing. There's not a whole lot of science behind this other than what I know, but I'm not an expert. And it was something that was rewarding. And now I look back, now I see Facebook memories from like 6 years ago, and I was checking in at the previous gym I went to, and it was, the focus check-ins. Sometimes I could read something I was listening to or something like that. And I was like, I was putting that out there because of something I was going through. And then it inspired. At my level, it inspired like maybe 10 people, where other people do it all the time and they try to make a job out of it.
Yeah.
But I still think you look for some sort of reaction.
Well, like, with the community page, if someone posts a picture of a cigar or a picture of a bottle they picked up and they haven't tried it before or something, like they're posting it because they're asking a question. Like we've had several times where people post a picture of a bottle, like, hey, I just picked this up. What do you guys think about it?
Right.
Like, I haven't had this before. I want your guys' opinion, because they legitimately care about what other people think about that.
Right.
And it may or may not influence their opinion. So that's one of the great things about the community page, is it does create a dialogue, but it's an actual dialogue. People are saying,
right.
Well, this is what I think of it. But if you said, if someone posts a picture of the piggyback and it's like, hey, what do you guys think of it? And someone goes out there and says, oh, I think that's absolutely the worst rye I've ever had. Like, all of a sudden, you're not too often you're wrong. Here's why you're wrong. Like, it got this rating or won this award. But I think there's a lot of other aspects of life that the opposite happens.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, hey, here's my belief. Here's my opinion. Damn you if you don't agree with me. And if you say anything that does disagree with me, I'm going to fire back at you. And it's no longer a dialogue. It's just a shouting match and see who can shout longer or loudest until one person's like, you know what, fuck you, and hits the block button or whatever.
Yeah. Different levels of like social media. And it's not just that, but that's, I think, where we're at now, obviously in today's current world. Now it's something like, if you're wearing a mask, you're not wearing a mask. If you have an opinion about something, now it's like you're either, Trump supporter or Biden supporter. And it could be something just about like fucking what you're grabbing out of the produce section. You know what I mean? I think it's that trivial anymore. You know what I mean? It's it's something that you are based on simple actions or simple statements. Now all of a sudden, I have pegged you as your whole belief system and who you are as a person, and whether or not I think you're a good or bad person.
Well,
it's been oversimplified.
So how much does our media, right, in the U.S. play a part in this? Right.
A lot. And I think during the quarantine, the true, if you want to call it quarantine, when the vast majority of people in the world and the US were sitting at home,
and they quite literally had nothing better to do.
Well, they quite literally had nothing better to do, but they had no other stimulus. And I had the conversation, some of my family members and some of like Liz, her family members, like they still haven't been to the office or really out in public a whole lot since March. We're going on 6 months with their only education, and I'm not belittling it, but their only education is what they see on the news that they follow. If they do their due diligence, they might follow the far one side, the far other side, and other sources in the middle to try to kind of decipher what the overall message is, because it's all based on interpretation when you're talking about the media, Twitter feeds, Facebook, and everything else. And a lot of times it's like-minded people that you surround yourself with. And especially as Nate was saying, if you disagree, you're going to be either blocking or not really paying attention to what they say, or it's just every time they post something, you're ready to fire back. But it's something that it frames, I guess, your conversation based on your intake. And when that intake is limited, now all of a sudden it's like when I talk to people and they're like, oh, you never stopped going into the shop, you never stopped leaving the house. And I'm like, no, I didn't. I was going into work. It was a different capacity. I was around less people. When they told me to wear a mask, for me, I could have a conversation about whether I think that masks or social distancing or whatever it might be, I think this is a good thing or bad thing. But the biggest thing for me is simply I wanted to be able to keep the shop open, keep income coming in. I wanted to do what I could within reason, as long as what I saw, what I read, what I learned, it didn't really affect. And there were people that were just like, well, you shouldn't be going into work. They're still doing that with like the gym thing. You know what I mean? It's like, well, the gym's doing this, this, and this. And they're like, well, I wish people, like, I get like these like under the breath, but very direct comments sometimes where it's like, well, I just wish people would be smarter and more safe. I'm like, okay, so you're not going to the gym. I'm not making you go. It's like one of those things. Yeah. Because their viewpoint, their vantage point, and their intake is different than mine.
Well, and what they do, and correct me if I'm wrong, is they dub themselves as an expert.
Or yes, based on what they have learned or read or seen.
Absorbed.
What I found very interesting, and I think this is and I'm sorry, please continue. This whole thing that's going on right now, what it has really shown me and has brought to light what you always think, it's based on when people choose to stop learning. And I'm not saying I'm right and you're wrong, or you're right and I'm wrong, but if you continue the conversation, if you continue the intake, now all of a sudden it's like with the current state, if you're telling me stuff that we were talking about based on COVID, protests, and everything else in the world, that was all based on stories or news articles from April and May when we were in the situation, I'm like, you need to get back to the sources and also look beyond your one or people that think like-minded, because that's part of the reason I feel like we're in the situation, no matter where you're at. But I look at that as when you talk to someone that hasn't changed in 5 or 10 years and they are still the same person, on one side, I'm like, good for you. You are genuine yourself, and that's fantastic. But I don't know how you haven't progressed and added to your belief system, no matter what the issue is or whatever the politics, religion, all the no-nos for talking about, when you're talking to people you don't want to get in an argument with, especially if you have different beliefs or about any of these things. But it's like you have this blinders on that you will not listen to anything. And if anything doesn't sync with what you think, it's wrong. So the media, I think, has absolutely really attributed to that.
I think Sean wants to make sure his channel's unmuted. The fourth one over. Sean?
Okay. Yeah, I was going to kind of bring up what you just brought up, Steve, is the fact that there's a lot of people have already made their minds made up. And if you go to, like, for example, a local news channel where an article is posted about whether it's protests or violence or, left or right wing or political, and you go through the thousands of comments, people has their minds made up already.
And what I like about that too is that it's people that follow that page or whatever. They're on both sides. They follow it for whatever reason.
Right.
They either follow it to be like, yes, absolutely, 100%. Yeah. Then the people are like, no, you're fucking stupid, and this is why.
Right. And a lot of times they see what like our local news will share something that's nationally broadcast or whatever. And there's times where, like you said, their minds are made up, and then it's just bashing each other. And and I can only look at that for maybe more than a couple minutes before I start losing my freaking mind, because it's so frustrating because nothing's getting resolved over it. I mean, even if somebody sat there and get 1,000-word essay as to why this is it, and this is the end all be all, the next comment is going to be, "You're full of shit." So, and that's usually a nice way of saying it. Usually it's a lot meaner. And I was talking to my wife. I'm like, I'm to the point where I wish I could just block all of that stuff off of Facebook, because it, like,
follow the Bourbon and BS community page.
I will. That's all I'm going to do, because I think what it is it like it'll start firing me up to the point where I get like there's just no
resolution.
No, and there's very few safe places to go to on social media anymore. It's because always is being brought up with something that's political or the protests or whatever, and it's very there's people I know that are not speaking to each other.
Yeah.
Because of that, one of the many things. And when you combine the politics, the COVID, it's been like, everyone knows it's been a shit year, and I'm worried about.
You're talking about. What do you mean?
I don't. I got this cut on my finger, and my car got hurt. No,
it's kind of warm lately.
Yeah, it's been a little heated. But I'm worried about like what's going to happen after the election, because God only knows what's going to happen after that. But I don't know. I try to find peace and solace by sometimes trying to look elsewhere. I'll be off of Facebook for 4 or 5 days, and I'll have 50 alerts, and half of them I don't even look at, because it usually has to do with that kind of crap. And I don't really want to go down that rabbit hole. So
Cesar actually said something. Let me scroll down here if I can. So there was a great thing about this, and I'm not huge on Zuckerberg, but Cesar Jackson says, I personally don't come to Facebook or Instagram for news. And that was one of the things that, some of these social media just powerhouses like Facebook and Twitter. Like, Facebook was one that they were like, no, we're not going to get involved. We are not a news source. And granted, there's still a bias. It doesn't matter. I don't care what you are, social media or media. There's always because people are involved and people in power that are involved, I think that there is always some sort of a bias. You know what I mean? There's some sort of an angle, but you can have this as something as a pure social media. This is the people. But I also don't think you should be, the clickbait is out there, because again, once you introduce people, it becomes a news platform for a lot of people, because people post an article from this and it doesn't matter. It's like, okay, well, it's from, and these are obvious ones, right? Well, you're posting one from CNN or you're posting one from Fox News. You're like, well, I already know the angle of this because those media giants are obviously
pushing their own.
Well, they're obvious. They don't hide behind it. But I mean, it shouldn't be a news source. But once again, and you're at this situation right now with the scope of the world and stuff like that. The opinions necessarily don't really matter because, like you're saying, Sean, is that people already have their opinions. So what's the point? Like, who are you trying to convert, other than just drum up drama?
Well, so I mean, so many people are so quick to judge.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, everybody is so judgmental, and that's one of the things that this year I've really, or I should say, in the past couple of years, I've really tried to work on personally, is not be so quick to judge. Right.
That's
is
good.
To be more open-minded, if you would, to listen more and to talk less. And I've never been one to put out my opinion. I'm very opinionated personally myself.
I've learned that you wait to be asked.
Yeah.
Which is actually a valid, very valid point to what you're saying and in general.
Yeah. Because I mean, everybody is so quick to judge, and you make a very broad-ended statement, and they'll point at you and say, oh no, you're one of these, or you fit into this category, right?
Yeah.
And so therefore I disagree with you. No matter what you say, no matter what your opinion, no matter what your belief system is that you fit this criteria, and because of that, I'm going to put you, and I'm going to very quickly judge you into this role.
Yeah, I think we're getting to that point now, even more so than ever, and it's a very slippery slope, no matter what, and it's tough not to talk about the election and everything else, because that's where I think a lot of this is headed, which no one should be surprised with, no matter what's going on every 4 years in the United States and across the globe, because of the stigma that the United States actually carries with it and the impact. It is so, in my opinion, it's a polarized that what you're saying is that if I know this about you, nothing you say matters, because you are this, and this based on this one fact. I don't even, and with social media, I've never even met you. Right?
Yeah.
Sean?
Yeah. I think the other thing too is not just media outlets that are posted on Facebook. It's friends that post a meme or make a comment that's like, man, this is, I just try to keep moving on, because usually somebody makes some kind of like a comment where you could get real argumentative. You look at the comments and there's like 120. I'm like, nope, not even going to go down there, because it's like, now all of a sudden you start seeing division among friends on those posts, and you're like, then you start, I'm guilty of it. I start judging, I'm like, God, I can't believe he thinks that way. Or why is he such a dick about it, or she or whoever. But
you brought up something earlier that I actually wanted to ask you about, like with all the stuff going on, over the last, call it 4, 8, 10 years, whatever, on social media. You had mentioned earlier, because I've had this happen to me too. Sometimes you get into the habit of reading some of the things going on, and it starts messing with you, your mental mindset.
Yes.
Not that you're questioning what you believe, but it's just physically exhausting.
Yeah.
Just looking at all this stuff. Have you found yourself like, you know what? Nope.
Nope.
And I'm just going to remove that part from my life.
Yeah. And God forbid I'd try not to post. Like I was on a Ring app from a few weeks ago, and we heard a shooting.
All right.
Not here in my neighborhood.
It was here.
Or here.
It's the same neighborhood.
I was trying to be nice to you. Anyway, screw it.
You brought it up.
But my point is that I just posted a simple thing on Ring, and everyone started attacking me for how I said it. It had nothing to do with, political or anything. It was like, well, you don't know what you're talking about, and my blood started to boil. And like, this is why I don't post that kind of shit, because I can't stay in a calm manner and argue it, because I'm like, I just start throwing MF bombs at everybody, because I can't do it.
I've done a lot of those like posts, but then I delete it before I hit send or.
But I mean, you're talking about an app that is a more or less a safety app.
That's the point of it, right?
Yeah.
Right. and
But it
and you
translates
put
over.
something out there, whether you thought it was going to help or something, and then you get on blast because of putting
something I may have misinformed with what kind of whatever, but on the bright side, they caught the shooter where everybody's safe. Okay, go ahead, keep going.
Well, the thing that I
You're
learned,
good.
the thing that I learned a few years ago that I started doing, just like you know, it became so mentally and physically taxing listening to some of this stuff and trying to have a dialogue. Like you can have two people, one's trying to actually have a conversation and a dialogue, and the other person just wants to shout and yell and say whatever. And I hit a point about 3 years ago where I decided I was not going to let other people have that much control over my emotions. I was not going to give them that power.
Okay.
And so I just stopped interacting with them, you know, and some of them were, you know, very close friends, but I was like, you know what? You are having too much of a negative impact on me personally, physically, mentally.
Right.
I got to do what's best for me. And go ahead, Steve.
I think that leads into a lot of this is that if you want to actually post something out there, you know, like you were talking about Sean and what you're talking about, Nate, is that, you know, if you are going to engage and Cesar says, if you have an opinion, be prepared to justify it or defend it. I agree with that. And I know Cesar now a little bit more since when he started listening, and he is a local guy. I ran into him not too long ago. It's interesting because I feel like a lot of times people lay it out there to defend it. You know, it's not necessarily I'm going to give an honest opinion. I'm going to give, you know, we're talking about opinions. Who cares about your opinion? They're giving their honest thoughts and feelings about something or their viewpoint, and they're like, no, I'm got pretty strong convictions on it, you know, and then you have to defend it. You're like, well, I wasn't trying to, you know, start anything. I was just putting it out there. There is a level of innocence that I think some people in a conversation or on social media, they actually say something. And I'm not saying that's what you were doing, Sean, but I mean, there are times where I want to like when I delete it, it's like I read something and it fires something up. I'm like, why do you say it like that? Like, you are getting after it. You are trying to you're stirring shit up. Like, that's the only reason you put this out there in a live conversation or in a social media post. And it's like, you already are showing me that you aren't asking for a debate even, let alone a conversation. You're just out there to put something out there like a shock value. And you just want to like get the shit going. So you can either watch the merry-go-round go around and just you spin it just for entertainment, or you just want to fucking fight because you're fucking miserable and bored. That's the way I look at it a lot of times, is that you don't want to actually do anything about the situation beyond whatever you see based on your blinders. And it's not.
Well, I mean,
helpful.
and in this day and age, it has gotten to the point, I feel, where if someone does put something out there, their opinion, what have you, their belief system, and what they truly believe, to add value, and their head literally gets chopped off.
So that's the cancel culture.
Well, and
not literally. We're not doing like, you know, the guillotine thing. You're not
well, I mean, metaphorically. No,
Okay.
no. I mean,
because they set up a guillotine outside of Jeff Bezos' home. Did you see that?
No.
Yeah.
Did they?
Yeah, they probably were they ordered it on Amazon Prime, I think. But
but I mean, but the truth be told, in this day and age, and everybody's so strong, opinionated, that somebody puts out there something that they believe, their opinion, whether it has validity, evidence behind it, that somebody on the opposite side gets a hold of it, and they literally call that person's employer and call for them to be fired.
Well, that's the opinion. Who cares about your opinion? It's
but people are getting fired now over their opinions.
So yeah, so it's interesting because, as a lot of things, it is the most vocal side of it. that actually typically sadly is against the opinion. This is both sides of it. I gotta tell you, I mean, like, I don't know who everyone out there is listening is voting for or anything. It was, I like to listen to when in this, I think that it actually it's been blown up to proportion that everything goes to this election, at least in our country. And we're talking COVID, protests, everything. It's all about the presidential election, which I will say this is, I think, is absolutely skewed because people fail to understand the relationship between federal and state. It's and city and blah, blah, blah. Like
government.
There's a very oversimplified level of government understanding, in my opinion. I'm not an expert, as I say about a lot of things, but I actually try to watch everything that President Trump says. And today, when Joe Biden was on the news, I saw it pop up on my Facebook, which is, I do like that about social media, is that I actually get alerts now because a lot of the news channels are using their likes and everything else to be able to say, hey, we're broadcasting this live. So I do like that part about it. The editorial part I could do without, which editorial is not even used anymore, by the way, is that it's just, this is news. And it's like, that used to be on the editorial page, which meant opinion. Doesn't exist anymore. But I actually, I enjoyed listening to both sides of that. I haven't heard, and this is not a political dig or anything like that, but I hadn't heard Biden speak to the press in a while. And so the fact that and I know he hasn't done a whole lot of it, but I may have missed other ones, but I can see him being a presidential candidate because of the way he addressed the media. He did really well today. I mean, I am looking forward to the debates if they happen, because I'm really interested to see. I have my viewpoints, and I know everyone else does, and I think that's what we're talking about, is that everyone has their like viewpoints. And I think that if you're going to be skewed by anything, it might be debates when you actually have it. One of the things that Biden said today, which I think was very on point, was that he wishes that there was a agreed upon fact checker in the debates, which I think this would be good going forward. That I don't care who you're supporting, and I mean I am more conservative and everything else. I love what he said. It was that I would love a fact checker at the bottom of the screen, that anything said would be run through this fact checker. Which I don't know where you're going to find this non-biased fact checker, by the way. Like that's the biggest thing. But he's like, I would love to see this, that no matter if I'm talking or the president's talking, and I like the fact he was respectful of that, that it would show if it was accurate. And I was like, the American people would love to see that. You know what I mean? Because if you are on the Republican side, you're on the Democratic side, it'll fuel your side if the opposite side is just lying. And then it's like, if your side is like, nope, red X on what your candidate just said, you're like, oh shit, what's the fact? It's like, if you can show it, it's like a game show at this point, you know what I mean? Where you're just like, no, actually in 1952, this is what happened. And this is, it was misquoted by this. But then he followed up by saying, he's like, I know that won't happen, but I was like, that's actually a good point. I don't care what side you're on, because I feel like people, when they're watching these things, if they put themselves out there to actually educate themselves, and that's what I love about the debate, is that you have both sides going at the same time, as opposed to everything else that's led up to this shit, is that you pick your news source and that's what you typically will follow. So it doesn't matter if it's politics, it's the protest, if it's religion, no matter what it is. I heard all these side comments of people. I'm not, Josh, I know you're religious. I'm not really religious anymore in my life at this point, but it was funny. I had this customer who was doing carry out, and it was when Trump was meeting with Kenosha, Wisconsin, and they started with a prayer. And he made the comment, I was like, well, that's nice to see separation of church and state. I was like, well, it's still on the money you just paid. Like, so I don't like, what do you, like? He's like, what do you mean? And I was like, you just paid cash and it said, in God we trust on it. Like, I don't necessarily agree with it, but like, it's still a thing. Like, I don't care if you don't want it to be a thing. Like, this was part of the history, and it's just sad to see that real strong bias, no matter what the facts are. It's all about what you believe.
Nobody can have a feeling anymore.
That's all we have.
Well, so that's all we have is we have a feeling,
but we mistake feelings for facts,
right?
I think what you're saying, no one can have a feeling, but everyone has feelings. You can't say that anymore, but you can say whatever the fuck you want. Is I think where we're at. Because if you disagree with it, it's wrong. But if you say what I'm saying, you're good.
The problem is you can't tell anybody how they feel, right?
But they do it all the time. That's my point.
If you feel a certain way, I can't tell you you're wrong, Steve, for feeling that way.
And yet that is what Twitter is based on right now.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You shouldn't say that. You should say, well, why do you feel that way? But instead you see more people saying,
no, you're wrong for feeling that way.
And here's why. Sometimes you don't even hear the here's why part. You literally are just like, no, you're wrong. You're a communist, you're a racist, you're whatever it is that's associated with whatever it might be. Is like, it's just like this treetop level thing. It's like, well, just have a fucking conversation.
I think one of the things I jotted down is there are some things in our lives where we do value the opinion of others, some things we don't. I think the more important or the bigger the issue is for you personally, the fewer opinions you're actually going to care about.
Yeah.
And the reason I bring that up is one of the earlier times that Josh was on, he talked about his board of directors.
Yeah.
So, when an opportunity presents itself to Josh, or opportunity, threat, like we talked about last week.
Yeah.
When something's going on.
It was a great episode with that SWAT.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When something, when Josh has a big decision to make about something, like, he's not going to sit there and put it on Facebook or Twitter and say, hey, here's what I got going on. What do you guys think I should do? And have thousands of people say, no, he's got a small select group of people whose opinions he truly values.
Well, he trusts,
and they don't always agree. They're not the same people as Josh. Otherwise you would just ask the mirror what you should do. You're asking people who are more experienced than you, more knowledgeable than you, people who have different life experiences.
Well, Josh, expand on that.
That's why I was bringing it up.
Okay. I appreciate that, Nate. I mean that because they're
stuck with us.
Might
be the next T-shirt.
There's a lot of value in that, though, and what I think that brings is I consider myself a man of integrity, and that goes along with it, and I really appreciate that, Nate, that you brought that up, and I mean it's something that I pride myself on because. Exactly what you said. I think there is a certain group of people that, good, bad, or indifferent, just want, like you had said, Steve, want to rise out of people. Right. that just want. Maybe they're lonely, right? And they don't have a certain group of people that they trust and that they go to. And that they're just soliciting something. But for me personally, and I had led into this in a conversation that we had in the past, that I have a board of directors in my life when I have a major decision, or like you said, a threat or a situation that I don't know how to deal with, Nate, that I have a board of directors, as I said, a group of people that are more mature than myself, have more experience than myself. Mentors, yes. Yeah. And I'll be able to take that situation, and they will help me to make a decision. And I find value in their opinions. I find value in their expertise, and they have it has boded me well. And I've gotten to the position where I am because of that. And I highly encourage people to do that before. And because of that, I don't put that much stake into social media. And what I mean by I don't put that much stake is I don't give it an ear. I really don't. And that might reflect though in in the numbers, right? In my followers, in as many likes as I get, as in the posts, that I make, because I'm not out there to get a rise out of people, which is how you're going to, go viral. I'm not out there soliciting opinions, from people, but, I'm trying to add value in a picture or a post of what I do. And, maybe somebody will go out and buy that bourbon or buy that cigar,
Let's take that thought and it's very admirable, because it's one of those things I think that you will have to, Josh, and Nate as well. I go back and forth. You guys follow me on social media. It's like sometimes I'm in the mood and I'm like trying to like promote cigars. I'm trying to promote like the check-ins. And like there's times even now where it's like I don't check in. I know it sounds very trivial, but like I really sometimes I'm happy with what's going on in my personal life. Like it's like I'll check Facebook, and like sometimes Instagram or Facebook or some social media outlet I haven't checked in like a day or two. Doesn't happen very often, but when I do, it's because I was fucking busy. I have even like group threads with people that we just I'll finally get back into it, and there's like 68 messages, and I'm like, oh shit, I missed all these things. Like I don't even know what these guys are talking about anymore. But I think that there's a the fact that you can remove yourself from that, it's not going to get any easier. But I like the fact that you tie that into like the board of directors. You pay attention to people that you pay attention to, and you're selective. And I'm of the belief that is part of what is going on right now. Is not only do you, I'm not going to speak for you. I don't think your whole board of directors is like-minded, because that's one of the reasons they're your board of directors, that they know more life experience, the mentor side of it, right? That is not what social media is about at this point. Because if someone knows more than you, that someone's older than you, that has life experience, but because you don't agree with whatever aspect it is, whether it be political, religious, or otherwise, you just now no longer value their opinion on anything. You could literally ask them, or they could tell you, hey, I saw you're going to that restaurant. I really like this dish there. You're like, I'm going to order something different because this person said that they like this dish. Hey, it might be the best thing on the menu. And you ask the server, what's the best thing on the menu? It's like, it's this burger. And they're like, you would say that. I'll order the chicken sandwich. Like, it's literally gotten to that point. It's that opposite of actual advice and conversation. I don't know. Nate, what do you think of this cigar?
It's good. I get a nice sweetness out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And for a Lancero, it does draw very well. Get a nice draw, nice smooth on the retrohale, good flavor to it. I'd put a medium body, but it's got a good flavor.
Josh, how do you deal with the fact that when we're talking about who cares about your opinion, right? So you're in sales. And when you walk into a place for the first time, you have this new Onyx Bold Nicaragua. And bear with me for those that aren't into cigars that are listening to this part of it. But you walk into a customer of yours and you just talk the cigar up. First time around, Tyler, you're in the audience right now, and you are still wet behind the ears, as they say. Don't say moist. But it's like you're wet behind the ears. When you walk in the first time, they don't carry the cigar and you don't have an established relationship. How does that compare to when you have a relationship with a customer and you're trying to sell them something? Is there a little bit of resentment? And I know it's a little loaded, but because I feel like there is. But when you walk in, you are who you are. You have this confidence level behind you, and you seem genuine, but you're also a salesman. There's a contradiction there, by the way, and stereotypes. How does that go for you?
Yeah, that's loaded, yes, to say the least. But
I didn't trust you the first time I met you. No, that's not true. That's not true. That's
no,
not
it's.
true.
I mean,
Tyler,
it's a very valid and good question, because a lot of the retailers that I deal with, I've been calling on for, some of them close to 8 years,
right,
and then a whole segment of them for 2 years. And then an even bigger segment for less than a year.
Yeah.
And so when I go in there and I don't have a relationship with them, I am very cognizant of that. Right. And what I mean by that is, I can come into the Tinder Box and I can say, hey, this is a great cigar. Let me lay the cigar in front of you. Or, hey, I don't even have the cigar. Let me lay the paperwork in front of you. Let me tell you.
We say no every
hey,
time.
This is a great cigar. You need to order it based on my opinion, because I'm telling you, this is going to fit the profile of your customer, and you need to order this cigar.
What's the difference going into a cigar shop, Josh Bentley now versus Josh Bentley 8 years ago? When you first got into being a rep.
Yeah.
Because I had to deal with that when I became a rep.
Sure.
Because I started out in retail.
So I pride myself again on, my experience right now.
Mm-hmm.
Back then I didn't have a whole lot of experience. I was quote unquote wet behind the ears. And, I had to go in there and I had to build my trust with the retailer, but I was very genuine.
Yeah.
Right. And you used that word before, Steve, before. And I think that built immediately a lot of trust with the retailers that I called on back then. Is I don't BS a lot.
There's nothing wrong with a little BS, right?
Right. I don't beat around the bush. How do you like that?
There you go.
I really don't. I'll get down to it. And I built a lot of my trust with my newer clientele now, right after being in the industry for 5 years and then coming back in, spending 6 months with a different manufacturer, and then coming on, and now 2 years, and then being introduced to a new territory. I built a lot of that trust on telling the truth.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of openness, though, that. And I can only speak from my standpoint with you, Josh, and what I try to do myself is there's a lot of openness, because there's a lot of people that getting to this aspect of the conversation when it's your opinion. You come in and we joke about it a lot, right? You tease the ones you love, right? There's always some kernel of truth behind it. It's like you got this well-dressed guy. He's got a lot of enthusiasm. He's coming in wet behind the ears, and he's talking nothing but positive about everything. And you're like, I don't trust anything you say. You know what I mean? And then, from my viewpoint with Josh, and I think a lot of people have these similarities, and again, it's a sales thing. Well, Josh went to Miami University. I went to Miami University. So now all of a sudden, Josh and I talk about Miami University. And it's like, in my mind, at some point, I'm just like, well, I really enjoy this conversation. At this point, I don't write the checks. You know what I mean? So it's like, you can talk nice to me and then maybe like butter me up for the person that has the checkbook or whatever it might be, or this is genuine. It's the staying power. This is the openness I'm talking about, is that once you talk to people and you start to see their faults, you see their flaws and everything else, that's where I think, well, who cares about your opinion? If you are open to that in a business relationship, personal, or if you're on social media, if my best advice to anyone that is socially linked and you want to actually have a conversation with that person, you want to open the can of worms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, direct message them and keep it between the two of you. Because I think that's just like in personal relationships, that's where it is. It's like, you have these conversations over the phone or through messaging or whatever it is. And now it's just the two of you. And if you're both engaged, honestly, and you talk about it, now all of a sudden it's like, hey, we're not putting this out there. We're not putting it on blast. We're not going to get everyone else involved. But I see what you said here. So now I want to actually, this is what I'm thinking. I have a question for you. And you see how they react. I think if you get someone on a one-on-one basis, now all of a sudden the opinion, who cares about your opinion? In private, just the two of you, one-on-one, in private, whether it's through social media or it's in person, and that can be like face-to-face, on the phone, just text messages, whatever it might be. Now all of a sudden you might actually get somewhere, and you might still agree to disagree, but now it's a constructive conversation.
Yeah.
See, when I started out, I tried to get people to like me. Like, even if they didn't like the brand that I represented, or they didn't, because, I came into a territory and I was the new guy in the company, and I knew not every single shop I went to is going to sit there and place an order with me. They're not going to sit there and, automatically want to do more business with me. So I tried to start at the bottom and get them to like me as a person. Had nothing to do with my politics, had nothing to do with religion. I tried to get them to like me as a person, because if I felt if I could get them to like me as a person, then they would like me as a sales rep. And if they liked me as a sales rep, then they would go and, they would want to support me and buy cigars from me.
Yeah. I mean, that tactic works really well.
Didn't work out well enough for me.
Well, and I'll say this because I pride myself. I think I have the innate ability to go into a situation, go into a conversation with someone who I don't know, who I don't have a previous relationship with, who I don't have a basis with on that point. And within 10 to 15 minutes, I pride myself on that person feeling like they have known me for years. Yeah. And having that relationship, and what does that do? That builds trust.
Yeah.
And it's proven with me personally. And I've been able to prove that with going into a negative situation where I call on somebody, I haven't met them, but the situation is already not good. I'm going into a negative situation, be it their view of my company is negative. Their view of the previous rep was negative, and go in there and be able to turn that situation around in a matter of one visit that lasted an hour or 2 hours, and if not one visit, by the second visit, and be able to smooth over that situation and invoke trust on that, in my case, retailer's perspective. And that has bode me very well.
Well, I think trust is also the value of you being genuine. That's the whole part of it, is that you're not just like, I was partially joking about it, but I mean the same thing. It's like, like when you hit it off with a salesman, it's like, you're still a salesman. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Oh, would I look good in this car? Yeah, cool. Like, I think I would too, but now I still don't trust you. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
like, but you have that relationship and you develop that trust. It's the fact that there is a value in the fact that, yes, you have a job to do. You're there to sell something. You're there to get your goal accomplished. But if it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit.
Yeah.
Dustin, what do you want to say?
So just like a few points. I think you guys, it's all fantastic points, but you're all kind of dancing around the same concept of open dialogue. There has to be that open dialogue amongst you and that other person or the group, if there is a group. That one-on-one is very important. But I think person to person, looking that person in the eyes and having that conversation is completely different than having a private messenger conversation or a text conversation, because I can send a text or a message to Steve and he can read it completely different than what I said it, if he doesn't know me, or even if he does know me, just because everything is within context. Within context of the conversation, within context of how you're driving that conversation, and where that conversation is leading. But having that one-on-one in-person conversation and open dialogue really helps build that trust. And that's, like you said, Steve, is a very key component in that. And Josh, your mentality, and Nate, you as well, of building that personable relationship with the people that you're trying to smooth over, if you will, or build that trust with, is the foundational building block upon that.
Yeah.
And that's an art and a mentality that's non-existent in today's world. And I think within the cigar industry and culture and the whiskey industry and culture, it kind of allows us all to kind of set some of our opinions aside for a brief moment to have that commonality, to where when you do and can have that conversation of people's opinions, and if they're differing, it's not the end of the world. You both understand it because you're having that open dialogue.
Well, again, it's listening, right? The open
Right.
dialogue. The biggest key to that is listening, and also not going in with preconceived notions. There's an age-old thing about, first impressions, right? It's tough to get beyond first impressions. So now that's, I think, sadly, I think first impressions are just, they're very blatant. It's based on profile pic. It's based on whatever it is. You could never have an interaction with someone, but because they see like your comment and then they click on your profile and be like, oh, of course they would say that. And you're like, well, or they might be like, oh, I'm surprised they would say that. And now all of a sudden it's there. We're in a different age anymore. First impressions are even before you even open your mouth, or even before you walk in that room. It's just everything that you have out there walking into that situation. Whether or not you even know you walked into a situation, there are emotions and feelings behind this response that sometimes is not even provoked. It's simply because you said something. That's that whole thing. I was alluded, like the cancel culture. It's like, because you said something eight years ago, and I was bored and couldn't sleep, and I scrolled all the way back and I'm like, well, that makes a lot of sense. That I can't believe that, you're doing as well as you are based on what you said 8 years ago. And you're like, what are you even talking about? Like, I have no idea. First of all, who are you? Why are you following me on social media?
There's always a preconceived notion, especially when you're going into, Josh, if you're going into a new shop, there's always going to be a preconceived notion if that shop doesn't know anything about you for any rhyme or reason, which, let's be honest, I don't know how or why they wouldn't, with being with Altadis and the repertoire you've built over the years. But a prime example would be, when I first got to the store that I'm at now, when they send me to another store, a new store, all the associates within that store, they either may know me, may not know me, they may know what they've heard through the grapevines, rumor mills, what have you. They're going to have a preconceived notion before they even meet me. And something that I've tried to do and built myself upon is, when I go in to meet all of these associates within the store, I ask questions more than actually talk about myself than anything, because I want them to know. I want to know about them. I want to know about their business, their backgrounds, their history, so on and so forth, because it allows me to build myself around them.
Yeah.
Being in the store that I'm at now, I failed on that piece, and it's come to bite me back in the ass now, having been there for a year. So trying to come back full circle and rebuild a lot of that makes it a lot more difficult, because I didn't take that first step that I should have based upon previous experiences in other stores. So it's a double-edged sword, and it kind of sucks, but that's, I think, a really key important piece when having that one-on-one conversation with someone, is that listening piece, the active listening, asking questions, being involved.
Throw up some comments here.
That reminds me of the first time my father ever dropped me off for a date. His advice: listen twice as much as you talk.
That's a dad thing to say.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that.
He probably tried to say that to you about what he was saying too at one point. He's like, since you didn't, he probably prefaced that with like, since you didn't do it with us, don't fuck this up.
No, I listen to my parents.
I'm just kidding.
You can ask my parents. One of them's probably still listening right now.
No, but I like.
I know that person.
Jess says the written word is amazing, but it's only part of the conversation. Speaking face to face, you get the full picture of communication. Their vocal inflection, body language, they're all part of the conversation. Now she followed it up with, what do we ourselves read into an online comment, and add our own inflections and tone to a comment that was just meant to be a simple comment. Two sides of that on my side. She meant what she said when I was in college. No, on AOL Instant Messenger. This is something that we have become accustomed to. The sad part is, I think it's come full circle, that it's no longer like a taking things the wrong way. We've gone full circle, that when you say things in maybe a passive aggressive way, if you're putting it out on social media, to Nate's point, you put it out there for a reason. You know, maybe to Jess's point, if you do it on a one-to-one level, you know what I mean? Like, maybe there is a listening, maybe there's a genuine side of it that you're like, hey, I'm just throwing it out there. When you put it out to the social media masses, no matter what the platform is, Nate, you had a great point earlier. You're looking for a response. Otherwise, you wouldn't have put it out there.
Positive or negative, you're looking for something.
Yeah. I think that you're looking for people. So that's the topic. That's the framing of it all. Who cares about your opinion? You hope that everyone does. The issue is that when you put shit out there, you're looking for other people's opinions. But sadly, I'm of the opinion that you don't care about other people's opinions. I think you're looking, throw me your opinion so I can just regurgitate mine one more time. You too. Yeah, I'm throwing it at you. You're cool. You actually agreed with me. And then also, I don't know who you are, where you live, but fuck you. I can't believe you even said that. And I don't know why your profile picture you have a blue shirt on, like, because it pisses me off. And you're like, I don't know. I don't remember when I took that picture. I was on vacation. It's just like so just biased for no reason a lot of times.
Yeah.
You guys have anything else on this topic? I think that for me, let's go to closing remarks. Nate?
Me? Oh, okay. So I read
Tyler, thanks for chipping in tonight. Yeah. You'll do great.
Yeah. No, I written a couple things down, and one actually brings back something, and I'll expand on a little bit. Something that Josh had said earlier. Josh had said earlier, some people just want to get a rise out of you.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the other side. Some people want to get you to rise. Some people just want to get a rise out of you. They want you to act emotionally.
Yeah.
They want to hear a response.
Yeah.
But then there are people that actually want to build you up.
Yeah, that's good.
They want to make you a better person. They want to help you become a better person.
Yeah.
The people that just want to get a rise out of you, those are the people that you don't care about their opinion. The people that want to see you rise are the people whose opinions you value. And so, and another thing I'd written down was like, I care about persons, not about people.
Say that. Explain that.
So if you identify as a certain people group, I don't care, but I care about you as a person.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care necessarily what your beliefs are on a given topic. I don't care what your opinions are on, maybe it's cigars or whiskey, but I care about you as a person. And if I care about you as a person, I'm going to care about your opinion. So I don't ask Steve his opinion on cigars because Steve checks these boxes.
There's
as
more to that. I thought you just
no, wait, just no, hold on.
I thought you were going to stop at opinion.
No, there was a comment there.
And then he says cigars, and
no, I don't ask.
Nope.
I don't ask Steve's opinion on cigars because Steve's the manager of a cigar shop. I don't ask his opinion on cigars because Steve's a male. I don't ask his opinion on cigars because he's white. I ask his opinion about cigars
it's getting thick
because he's a friend of mine, because I value his opinion. I know he has a lot of knowledge and experience. That's why I value his opinion.
Yeah.
And whatever the topic is going to determine whose opinion you value. So, for example, before I proposed to my wife, I didn't just sit there and put on social media, "Hey, you guys think I should propose to my wife, to my fiance, to my girlfriend?"
Yeah.
Because most of the people out there, I don't care about what their opinion is.
It would also give away the surprise.
Yeah, it would.
Because I think she follows you.
But
so anyone listening out there, don't do that.
Yeah, don't do it. But there were people that I did talk to about that because marriage is a big step in life. Buying a house is a big step in life. There's a lot of things that are big steps in your life, but each one is going to have different people whose opinion you value. Like, I wouldn't have asked anyone in this garage their opinion on whether or not I should have proposed to my girlfriend.
Yes.
But I was going to talk to my parents.
Right.
I was going to talk to my pastor. I was going to talk to the people that when it came to that topic, their opinions and because of their experiences mattered. I'm not going to ask those same people questions about bourbon and cigars because, I'm not going to ask my mom her opinion on a bourbon because my mom doesn't drink.
All right.
So that's not going to do me any good. I'm going to ask people like Steve or Dustin, stuff like that. So I care about,
so you pick your audience.
I do.
Yeah.
Because I care about those persons for what they, because of the relationship I have with them.
Makes sense. Josh, how about you?
Yeah.
And thank you very much for being a part of this again.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And it's been an incredible topic tonight. It's a hot topic. It's a hot button in the day and age that we live in today. I was in a cigar shop today, and
really?
Yeah, believe it or not. And this particular shop it's a no bar hold shop. They talk about everything that is
politics, religion, everything,
right?
Just,
they put it out there. But you want to know what the one thing is?
What's that?
They all get along.
Yeah,
they really do. And politics were brought up when I was there. The hot topic of race and where we stand as a nation was brought up today. And a gentleman brought up a point, and he was sitting at work, and he was sitting with a coworker, and they were listening to the same news station, and this topic was brought up, and they both listened to the same thing, and his coworker was quick to speak. And he said, "Did you hear that? This, and this." And he said, "I was listening to the same thing."
Yeah.
And that's not what he said. And he said, but this, and this. And he said, no, listen. He said, "Listen, you don't smoke enough cigars," is what the guy said to him. And the guy said, what do you mean by that? He said, "My place that I go to," he said, "we all have different opinions on politics, on what's happening in our nation right now. And doesn't matter your race, your sex, your beliefs, what have you. We go there and we have commonality.
Yeah.
And that commonality is around cigars.
Yeah.
And they have a Brothers of the Leaf community in that certain shop, and they all come together and they sit there and they get along and they all love each other." And he said, "Listen, before I ask you for anything," and he's talking to his coworker, "I would call any one of these people at the shop before I called you." And I think that goes a long way. And so my closing remarks is I'm gonna say, like, listen, be true to who you are, right? Be slow to speak and quick to listen. And try, before you want to go and fire off a comment at something that you think is wrong on social media, on whatever platform that you're on, and think before you post. Think of that person's belief system might differ from yours, but just give some time and some thought before you fire off a quick comment. And I think if we all did that, and we were all not as quick to judge, this world would be a much better place, right?
More productive.
A ton more productive.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be across the aisle from each other, and we would be able to come together as humankind, right? And love each other, which everybody preaches, but I feel like nobody puts into practice. And so, again, be true to yourself, right? Expect to be uncomfortable in situations and in conversation. You should expect that, but be okay, right? When you don't hear what you don't want to hear.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Be okay with that, and be okay to leave that conversation not getting the result that you want. And if you do that, again, I said before, I think the world is going to be a much better place, but we're going to get along a whole lot better because you're going to be uncomfortable, right? And you can choose to go through life uncomfortably and anger and mad at everybody else in the world, or you can choose to be content with where you're at, be solid in your belief system, and true to who you are.
Just don't drop the mic. These aren't free. I feel like you're about to drop the mic.
The only people that
we got to buy a new mic.
The only people that drop mics are people who don't know how expensive mics are.
Like I was waiting for it. Just boom.
No, I wouldn't do that.
As a sound man for over a decade, yet.
I feel in part I paid for part of this mic or something like that.
No,
you have contributed. No, you contributed a lot to this podcast. All right, so this is what it reminds me when you're talking about who cares about your opinion. There was a time in my life I was in a different career, and I know a lot of people out there are put in networking situations, and this is scaling it back. I'm going to take it back from the big picture right now, but it is very relevant. You go to a networking event for business, right? And what I learned a lot about that at an early stage was that you have to ask more questions. You don't just go in there to sell. You're in a networking event. This is whether it be Chamber of Commerce, whether it be something where it's like a lead group or whatever. It's always about finding out what the other people do or what they add value.
Mm-hmm.
And the way you win is it is a bit of a strategy long term. You're playing the long term game, but it's more valuable if you know what they do, so that you can actually give them leads, you can give them support, you can learn about them and their business before you just tell them what you do and let them decipher whether or not you add value to them. That's the long-term game, only because, and this is how personal relationships I feel like should work, is that you learn more about that person, you ask questions, you see where they're coming from, so that you're like, you know what, I actually have this. I get what you're saying. I have this that I can add value to you. And they ask you, what do you do? What's your business? And you say, I do this. I'm in the cigar industry. And you're like, none of my customers smoke cigars. I'm like, cool. Well, what I can still do is this. And then there's that one day that, you know, like they say, you know, I was talking to someone, I was on the golf course, I was doing this, and they were talking about cigars. And they're like, I met this person at this networking event 2 years ago. I don't know if they're still there or not, but let me see. I think I still have their business card. It's because you added value. And what I will say, when who cares about your opinion? Who doesn't care about your opinion is people that don't know who the fuck you are. Like, if you get into it and you don't introduce yourself, there's no conversation, all you're doing is spewing your opinion, there is no value to it at all. You will not convert that person. You will not change their mind. You won't even make a dent on where they're at as a person, because they don't know you. And all you care about is telling them what your opinion is. You don't have a person or personality or just a genuine character behind you as a person. And that's, I think, where we're at with the social media side of it, is that it's like you literally just throw your shit out there. They don't know who you are. They've never met you. There's no basis behind what you're saying to their mind, other than the fact that you're saying something they don't agree with. And that's where the personal interaction, that's where you listen, that's where you do that whole other mentality. You ask questions. Why do you say that? Why do you think that way? And it's not about winning or trying to make a sale. It's like you have to have genuine ears open to what they're saying, so you can say, I see where you're coming from. I don't see where you're coming from. This is where I'm coming from, if they ask. But just know that if you don't have a personal relationship with someone, no one fucking cares what you have to say. They just don't. You have to have some identity behind whatever the fuck you're saying, because I look at it as your opinion is only as important as who you are as a person. It's kind of like when you get an insult and you're like, well, look where it's coming from. They're a miserable person. It just doesn't matter. I think that when you ask the question, who cares about your opinion? It's people that know you. And it's your job, if you want to actually get your thoughts and opinion across to other people and make an impact, you have to be genuine. You have to be consistent. You have to be open when people ask, or if you do the other route where you're putting yourself out there, if someone gives you their opinion and you don't know who they are, you can read the comment, you can hear what they have to say, but if they don't offer who they are as a person, you shouldn't care less either. Because there's no fact behind it. There's no person behind it. Someone made a comment earlier about Twitter and everything else. I think it was Ray.
Sounds right.
He said something along the lines of, have you ever noticed that most people on like social media aren't actually giving honest opinions? They're just retweeting or reposting. That doesn't matter. That's just spreading whatever they believe. But if you don't know who they are as a person, there's no credibility behind it. And so I'll leave it at this. In my opinion, I value your opinion if I know who you are as a person. It doesn't mean I'm not going to listen to you or read what you say or hear what you say. But if you really want to make a change, you want to make a difference, you want to actually do something, don't just go out there and spew your opinions. Make a name for yourself to a point that people will actually have a reason to listen to you. And 134 episodes in, if you have listened from the beginning, I'm still not sure why, but maybe you actually value what we say on this podcast. But it's taken 2.5 years. In the beginning, you're like, let's see how drunk these guys get. So with that, guys, cheers. Thank you to all our sponsors, including Altadis USA and Josh. Guys, have a great
Cheers.
Whiskey Wednesday and a great week.
Thanks.